So I hate to boil this all down to Miami's offense versus the Ravens defense, but I think this is a lot of it. I think Baltimore is going to be able to move the ball at times. I don't love the matchups outside, but Lamar does really well against split safety looks, and I think there's reason to be excited if you're Baltimore's offense this week.
Earlysville, Virginia. Hello!
Why?
If Charlottesville is Seville, what's Earlysville?
Evil.
Oh, don't talk about it like that now. Lovely little spot. It's not evil at all.
Oh, okay, got you. All right, was that your whole thing?
Spot little north of Charlottesville.
You
Lovely
have hair
little.
on your face, coming out of your mouth.
I have several hairs on my, coming out of my mouth.
Yeah, okay, I think it's gone. I think you got it.
Thanks, man. That reminds me of the other day when you had some seaweed in your teeth and like your whole family had been looking at it all day long.
They don't tell me anything.
No. I roll in. I help a friend out right away.
I had John Phillips come by, my old teammate, to deliver some firewood, and he didn't say anything. Like the whole damn house didn't tell me I had seaweed in my mouth.
You can count on me if you have seaweed in your mouth. I'll tell you.
So we've seen each other twice over the break.
How about
nice.
that?
You came over to my house.
That was great.
For a couple minutes. That was great. Saw you at the UVA game last night. I took one of my boys to the Virginia Morgan State game, and that was the second time over the last 2 weeks that we've gotten to go see a basketball game up close. Guy loves basketball. Got to go to Philly for the holiday. Went and saw the Sixers play the T-Wolves, which unbeknownst to me was a really good game because the T-Wolves are crushing it right now. I got to see Anthony Edwards up close, the whole thing. Thank you to the Sixers. Every time I go, they hook me up. I try to go like no more than once a year because they get me to ring the bell. I thought the best possible outcome was, because I've always said this, that bell should be a lot bigger. It's like an awkward sized bell to be ringing. And it's
awkward sound too.
It's hard to look athletic doing it. I don't like the way I look doing it. And then so like I'm going into the tunnel and I'm watching like Jalen Hurts do it. And I'm like, well, if anybody's going to look cool doing it, it's Jalen Hurts. And he didn't look that fucking cool.
Yeah. Well, I think the instrument needs to be bigger. It needs to be gong. It needs to be a gong, just bell-shaped.
It needs to be a gong. So I go out there and they're like, hey, we got this kid here. He's a local kid. His parents donated a bunch of money. And so he's going to be accompanying you out to the bell. And my response was, of course, well, he can just ring the bell.
Yeah.
That was like the best possible outcome. And people are like, look, Chris is letting him ring the bell. I don't want to ring the bell.
Little Trojan horse thing going
Trojan
on here.
Horse thing. And I like sitting courtside. Yeah, I always say this, like with sports, the best ticket in sports is courtside basketball.
No doubt.
If you can see courtside basketball, because the players look so much different in person. And I'm sure, like, I don't have the experience of a guy that played in the NFL for a long time. I don't have the experience of a dude that never seen big guys up close. So I don't know what it's like to be in that kind of stanchioned off, fans on the sideline experience, and you've never done it before, and you're watching, I don't know, Lane Johnson run by. Like, that's got to be crazy. But to see Joel Embiid score 50 points was insane. I can remember the first time in my career I was hurt, I traveled with the team to Minnesota to play the Vikings, and I can remember being on the sideline and distinctly thinking, this is fucking crazy what we're doing. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, I've never seen it. I've only done it. And the thumps, dude, like LaMarcus Joyner hit Teddy Bridgewater so hard on the sideline. It was borderline dirty hit. Probably was a dirty hit. And the noise, I'll never forget it. And standing there with no pads on, not warmed up, no Toradol in my body, just getting out of the way is a problem. But I do maintain that sitting courtside is awesome. We also sat courtside at the Virginia game. Again, like, I'm not buying these tickets. I got a gift, so it was really cool. And it was Morgan State, so I didn't feel bad about taking the tickets. No disrespect to Morgan State.
And just knowing you got me free tickets, so thank you.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody was happy last night. And Waylon got to sit courtside. I'm really careful when you sit down somewhere like that. Like, it was like we were at the Sixers game. I got to catch up with Malcolm Jenkins. It's pretty funny. Like, me and Malk talk a lot, but we don't talk enough to know where he's going that particular night. And he didn't know I was in town. I didn't know he was in town. I'm coming to my seats, and the guys are like, guess who you're going to be sitting next to? And I'm like, oh, God, who's it going to be? And it was Malcolm.
That's awesome.
So it was awesome catching up with Malk. I mean, like, honestly, there's guys that you played with that you think are, like, great friends, and then you retire, and you don't talk to them as much and that sort of thing. But Malcolm and I, who became friends late in my career, It's been really cool kind of staying in touch with Malk. I think he's a great guy, and we have a lot in common. And just sitting there with him for 2 hours, it was like we were still on the team together. And, when you have those moments, it really drives home how special that group was. But Malk's buddy dropped an ice cube, and it was like on the baseline. And we were like, do we say anything? Like, we don't want to be the ones. Like, think of all the things that you can affect dropping an ice cube courtside. You can affect gambling money.
Jason Kidd famously tried it. He spilled his drink on purpose on the court to get a free timeout.
Jason Kidd did.
Yeah.
Now I'm talking about people getting hurt.
Yeah.
Did it occur to anybody to pick up the ice cube?
Well, after about 15 seconds, I laid out all the scenarios that could happen if that ice cube stays on the court. And I think it was like, hey, Joel Embiid slips on this thing.
You're a villain.
He doesn't win MVP. You're a villain. You got people that had futures on that coming to find you. That's not what you want to do, because that ice cube is going to turn into water pretty soon. So when Waylon's courtside, like literally he asks for a sip of water and I pour it in his mouth. Like, you're just not allowed to be freewheeling a bottle of Aquafina courtside. But it was really cool because Waylon got to hold the game ball during a timeout.
Wow. The
referee came over, and I guess the thing they do under the basket there, but they hand the ball to the kids. And so like Waylon got to hold the ball, a bunch of kids in the row got to hold the ball. It was really cool. And my last thing about sitting courtside at a basketball game is if you've done both, if you've done the pro basketball and the college basketball, the number one thing that stands out to me is that the officials in the NBA are fucking workhorses. Those guys are in phenomenal shape. Phenomenal shape. They run all day. Now, I figure college refs are probably in shape too, and this is no shade at the guys who officiated the Morgan State game last night.
With those big old hearts that gave out the game balls.
Big old hearts, but not big old muscles.
Roger Ayers, though, is probably like 60 years old running up and down that floor.
Does he look good?
Yeah, well, you tell me,
It's the shot clock, man. It's the shot clock. It's the pace of play. It's the shot clock. You can referee Virginia games. I can go out and referee a Virginia game right now. Pack line D. It's like 15 trips up and down the court each half.
Foul.
You know what I mean? So in the NBA, I just wanted to tip my cap to those officials. They're like John Baystow's out there.
And that's their full-time job. A lot of those college refs, they have day jobs. So they're not able to exercise all day like Steve Javie was.
It was funny watching the refs. There was a really bad call that they missed, and it got overturned, but it went to review, and the whole place is booing them. And watching their faces as they see the review, they don't take it that seriously. They're like, oh, we fucked up.
Oh, that one they didn't review. The one that was egregious, they didn't look at.
What happened?
I saw them talking to each other. They just gave the ball to
Luckily,
Morgan State.
it was a 20-point game.
Yeah, and turned into about a 35-point game. Virginia covered. But
Thanks for that first half play.
You're welcome.
Virginia minus 15. We've been doing, with so much sports on TV, you find yourself betting, the first responders bowl in an NBA game. We had Milwaukee last night, and Milwaukee Brooklyn first half. It's 5.5, and we don't have the game. And I know y'all have been here before, you listeners, where you can't get the game. You're just scrolling the score app. And with about 15 seconds left, Brooklyn scores and pushes it to 4. And I'm like, holy fuck, I feel helpless. I'm scrolling. Milwaukee hits a three-pointer to make it, 7. And so, we're out of the woods now. But then I see that Brooklyn,
technical
with
foul,
0 time left on the clock, is awarded free throws.
Unbelievable.
I mean, just unreal. And I didn't get to see what happened, but I guess the guy missed the free throw.
Well, he made it, but there was only one free throw. So it ended up, and then they ended up tacking on to the third quarter tally, I think. But that was not clear on our score app.
Can you believe that? I mean, just some of the things that happen when you can't watch the game that you're betting.
And the thing about tennis I've been thinking about, where I think I've gotten into trouble, I don't know if these matches are actually happening.
It might as well not be happening.
Like, I'll get onto the app and I'll be live betting, and then something will happen quickly, and I'm like, there's no way I can check this.
That's what like some of these offshore books should do, is just start listing, phony tennis matches with 17 consonants in the name, and it's like just 2 Russian tennis players we've never heard of, and then just check the tickets and make up a result.
Yeah,
because most of these bets that you're placing, you're not watching.
Work on your serve, Yoki Oto.
I got a funny story. I've been watching a lot of ball with Waylon. I talked about going to the game last night. It's really cool. I love Christmas break. My wife, understandably is like, fuck Christmas break. But I'm kind of like, well, my job description doesn't change that much. I get to hang out with my kids more. Watching football late at night. Waylon and I are up again last night till like 10 o'clock watching USC in Louisville. He knows Dad's on the over. Like, it's a real fun dynamic right now. But at one point, he found out that the Bears hold the first pick in the draft. And he was incredulous. And he's like, hey, the Carolina Panthers have two wins, Dad. And so I'm like, all right, I got to explain this to Waylon, which is a really tough deal. If you've never actually, it's also like the first question was, Dad, how rare is it to play in the NFL? And try explaining the word average to a kid, like on the average football team. Like, explain average to a 7-year-old. How do you do it? It's impossible. You got to use math and shit. So I said, if 100 guys are in the room, one of those guys is going to go to the NFL. And that was the best I could do. And the next question was, what's up with the draft order? So, and I've had to explain some tough shit to Waylon before, but this is up there with like explaining what happens when we die, which I've also had to do. Like, this is tough. So I said, give me a second. I said, you're in a class full of 32 kids, right? And, it's the same kids every year. You're going to go all the way to high school with these kids. Every year you get to go to the arcade. It's the best arcade in the world. It's like the one that everybody talks about. They got new games every year. It's like magic. But the one catch is there's a line. Okay, so there's a line to the arcade. You don't know where you're going to be in that line year to year. But the bottom line is there's only one kid allowed in the arcade at one time, which makes no sense. But for the sake of the argument, one kid goes in the arcade at a time, and every kid gets like 30 minutes. So if you're picking 32, like, it's going to be a long afternoon. So let's say, for instance, that one year you get to pick first, okay? And everybody in the back of the line's like cussing you and looking up at you and like, man, I wish I was Waylon. He's got a friend named Finn who's actually Matt's nephew. Mm-hmm. And Matt's nephew, Finn, actually, I found out, was dressed as a ninja for Christmas. So I really like the kid. But you and Finn are in line, right? And, in this line, you can actually get out of the line to talk to each other in this scenario. So Finn walks up and he's like, hey, man, like, I don't want to wait all day. Your mom isn't getting here till 6. Like, so, what's the point? Just, can we switch spots this year? Like, there's a lot of games I want to play. And so Waylon would say, hey, what's it to you? And he says, well, next year I want to take your slot and my slot in the arcade line. And Finn says, no problem. He walks up to the front of the line. Waylon's got to go back to 9. And he's like nodding along. And I'm like, so let's say.
So wait, my nephew is David Tepper.
Your nephew's David Tepper, essentially. I said, next year rolls around and Finn says, you know what, last year I didn't have a lot of fun at the arcade. Like the games were just all right. The new Ninja game, the gameplay was kind of meh. And, like, there's a lot of new games this year. And it's not fair that I don't get to go to the arcade. And you're like, well, tough cookies. So the Bears are going to get to the arcade this year for 2 slots, and including Finn's slot. And wouldn't it be terrible if Finn's slot was really good and he was like first? And he's like, yeah, I kind of get it. And so then he sat there for a second, and I'm like, did I explain this thing correctly? And he goes, Dada, why is there a team in the WNBA that looks like a team in the NBA? Which is totally unrelated. He's talking about the Minnesota Lynx and the Timberwolves. But to me, that means he didn't get it at all. And 5 seconds later, he's like, no, I think I understand what you're saying. And I'm like, now imagine if Justin Fields doesn't leave the Bears. Do you know what that means? And he's like, well, I don't know what that means. I'm like, the Bears get to go to the arcade a couple more times over the next couple of years. And I go, now imagine that Finn slipped you a backpack full of Sour Patch Kids. That's DJ Moore. So, like, Finn gave up a lot to get, you know what I'm saying? And I don't know if he understood it, but like, I would challenge you, if you're a parent, to explain draft order to a kid aged like 7 to 9. I don't know if like they turn the corner at 8. Like, it's a really hard thing to explain to a kid.
So Waylon knows about point spreads, overs, unders, the meaning of life, what happens after death.
After you die.
But you couldn't have
Well,
just
no, he
said,
doesn't, because I really didn't know what to say in that moment. We were eating at a Mexican restaurant. A 100-year guy walks in, and he's really struggling to order his, like, fucking chips and salsa, and Waylon just breaks down crying. So I got to walk him outside. I'll never forget this. We're sitting on the steps, and I'm like, what's wrong? What's wrong? He's like, Dad, are we going to die?
Damn.
And I'm like, holy shit, Mom!
Waylon should be a college basketball official with a big heart like that.
Yeah, dude. I mean, and the other one was a lot easier. It was the other day, actually, with Luke watching the Chiefs game, and I told these guys this, but for some reason, Luke asked out of nowhere, when I grow up, is Patrick Mahomes going to die? like, what?
Answer's yes.
And then the conversation was over. So it was a lot easier with Luke than Waylon. But yeah, it's a tough conversation, as is like draft compensation.
Did you give this a shot at all? Bears had the 1 pick last year, traded it to Carolina. They had the 1 pick.
He didn't understand that.
Okay.
Because, there's like for a kid, like it's just a little bit, it's a bridge too far. So
for a 7-year-old, though, his knowledge of football is off the chart.
Well, it's very good.
He's watching football with us on Sunday, like making points.
Every Sunday, and he's always on the other side of me. And like honestly, like I went on a skit a couple weeks ago. I'm convinced it's because he's like the guy in Bronx Tale. Like I got to put him in the closet. So it's fun watching games with him. Christmas was great. I hope yours was.
Yeah, lovely. Norovirus. I went to the hospital.
Yeah.
Rest of the family got it too. The pukes, the poops. But we cleared everything before Christmas. It was lovely. Thank you.
I got a shiatsu massager. That's a total fucking game changer.
Shiatsu. Now, is that a brand? Is that a kind of massager?
It's a kind of massage. Okay. It's like a harness that you put on, and it just digs into your shoulders and your back.
Wow.
I can barely move, so it's great to get the shiatsu massager. Meg also got me a really high-class rolling tray. It's like marble, and then she got me like a knit sweater and a corduroy jacket, and I was like, "What am I, Seth Rogen?" But essentially, my wife gets me, so I want to thank my wife for those presents. The shiatsu massager is great too. That came from the nanny. Shout out to Grayson, and it was a good Christmas. I love Christmas, man. I love Christmas. I love sitting around and watching all this football. And that probably leads us into our first 15, which is going to be football related. And then we've got previews and Zach Sealer and Steve for locks. But let's start with first 15.
First 15. Hudut. Am I up?
Yeah, you're up, big dog.
Let me give you a little history of the coin toss. I love this because it shows how we're getting progressively dumber or regressively dumber. Mm-hmm. Coin toss has been a part of professional football since it started in 1892. From 1892 to 1920, the captains of each team handled the coin toss before the game. The officials were just like, let us know how it turns out.
Something changed last week.
In 1921, the referee began to perform the coin toss. In 46, it was stipulated that the toss was to be made prior to either team leaving the field after their pregame warm-up. 76, the coin toss was changed from 30 minutes to 3 minutes before kickoff. And in 1998, the procedure was modified to have the visiting captain call the toss before the referee tossed the coin instead of when the coin was in the air. You can see where that could get hairy. Also, the back judge and field judge would stand by the captains throughout the coin toss ceremony to make sure there was no confusion over the call. Now, there have been some famous coin tosses. Jerome Bettis in 1998. There's actually an oral history that I could not recommend more highly.
The Al Harris, Matt Hasselbeck.
That one. Bettis said, I called the coin flip at the beginning of the game and I called heads. And so in overtime, I was going to call heads. I went to say heads and I said, tails. I was trying to change from heads to tails. But when the ref heard me say, he said, I said heads. He didn't hear me all the way through. I always called heads every game, but it was OT, so I wanted to call tails. I said, what are you talking about? Even Lions players were like, whoa, I called tails. Carnell Lake said I was standing right there. Jerome said tails. He may have double clutched the tails, but he said tails.
Yeah.
Phil Luckett was the official.
Never forget that.
One. You might remember St. Louis and Washington. Jeff Fisher sent out all the players he received in the RG3 trade as prompted to by you.
Yeah.
I'll
never forget that. Sitting in there with an IV in my arm, be like, Jeff, I got an idea.
Jenkins, Brocker, Stacy, Bailey, Robinson, Ogletree. RG3 didn't even start the game. He played a little bit.
Right. And in retrospect, I didn't mean it to be personal to RG3. I just meant it to fuck with him.
Rams won the game 24-0.
Of course we did.
Yeah.
Because we had him in a headlock.
The football team fell to 3-10 that year. Hugh Jackson did it once unintentionally. What I'm about to refer to, the Jair Alexander situation where he kicked off both halves. Charlie Strong had an incident at Texas.
I almost had an incident.
2019 Dak and the Cowboys, you almost had one.
Listen, last week, as I was so entertained by this Jair thing, which you're about to talk about, I think it's the story of the week. I've never heard him talk that much, so that was part of it.
Yes.
I almost pulled a Jair in the pros. Like, they used to rotate captains.
By saying kick instead of defer?
Well, I was like, we want to play defense. Essentially what he did. And luckily, my friend corrected me. But that also wasn't like 24-hour news cycle, and I wasn't Jair Alexander, so it worked out.
So Jair, Green Bay Packer, highest paid corner in the league. He's from Charlotte.
Yeah.
So he thought that meant he could roll out there with the actual
So
captains
fucking funny,
on the
dude.
Green Bay Packers. So he trots out there with Aaron Jones and Quay Walker and Eric Wilson. And not only does he walk out there with them, he makes the call, which is tails, and he gets it right. And he says, not unlike you, we want the defense out there.
Yeah.
And that is called kicking off.
Yeah.
In other words.
Yeah.
What you're after is the word defer. We want to make the decision.
I think what I said is we want to
half.
kick in the second half. And that's not an acceptable answer either. You know, it's like just say the shorter thing.
Yeah.
I don't want to cop to being Jair Alexander. I'm not positive what I said, but it was a problem.
So it ends up being a tight game. If Carolina gets that ball twice, could be a problem. And
Big problem.
And Jair has since been suspended by Green Bay. Matt LaFleur said it wasn't just this. It's been a few things.
In a playoff race.
But walking out there when you're not a captain and then nearly torpedoing the entire season is just sensational. However, I want to make the argument that we get back to real football because it used to be that teams intentionally elected to kick both halves. It happened in the 1981 AFC title game. It happened in the 86 NFC title game. Washington football team Giants. Giants won 17-0, kicking off in both halves. 93 wild card game, Giants Vikings. It happened then. We need weather to return.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had any weather anywhere the entire season, and people need to believe in these stout defenses. We got all these butt cheeks quarterbacks running out there. Send the defense out there twice.
If I'm on the road and I'm playing a better team, I'm never receiving the ball.
No,
like
thank
that's
you.
how you get jumped. There's countless instances where I played where I can remember, you know, like even on good teams going down to Tampa or something with the Eagles, I feel like we started the game really tough. You know, I think they might have received there, but I'm just thinking about when you go on the road and it's loud and the offense is having trouble and they're backed up, like, and then the first thing you know, 13 minutes in the game, or 2 minutes in the game, 13 minutes left in the first quarter, other teams got the ball at like the 47.
Yeah.
Like, that's how it goes a lot. And even, like, people laughed at me about this take, but I still mean it. I wasn't fucking around. Some things I'm fucking around about, not this one. The Giants and the Jets, when they played earlier this year, the Giants elected to receive the overtime coin toss, which seems like a no-brainer unless you're going to get like -7 yards.
Correct.
You know, like the best possible outcome for them there was maybe a tie or a turnover from Zach Wilson, but they elected to receive the ball, lost yardage, kicked the ball to the Jets who had a short field.
Hindsight's 20/20, but Sean Payton calls those 2 timeouts at the end of regulation to try to get the ball back Christmas Eve night, and Bailey Zappi completes that 25-yarder to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
The Patriots were ready to go to overtime, but Peyton calls those timeouts, and then you end up losing the game on Ryan.
You had a rooting interest in that game.
I did.
As did I.
I had a big cash-out option before the 56-yarder, and I was like,
He had Broncos money line. I had Pats money line, and it was just, I mean, like the end of that game.
In my defense, I thought, well, this is terrible kicker Chad Ryland trotting out there. Didn't factor in Mile High.
How about Bill winning with that terrible kicker that he drafted
in like the
and
third
driving
round.
and tanking their draft status?
I know.
I'm going to ruin this with the terrible kicker I drafted, and then maybe I'm going to leave.
Parting shot on the coin tosses. Last 10 Super Bowls, 7 tails, 3 heads. The 5 years before that, 5 straight heads. All-time 30 tails, 27 heads.
And on this side of the commemorative coin, we have a lawnmower for the bad boy mower, like the poinsettia. On this side, it's a flower. On this side, it's like Capital One.
You got it.
It's just too fucking complicated now. And that leads me into my first 15. You know, these bowl games are getting out of control, guys. I really mean this. Like, just the corporatization of these bowl games. They've always been corporate, but back in my day, it was like the Pacific Life Holiday Bowl was just like a whale. And it was Darren Sproles against Terrell Suggs. Like, it was just simpler. It was a simpler day. You know, now it's like down to the trophies, the Pop-Tart trophy, by the way. And, you know, you can get away with this. Like, if you're Pop-Tart, like, it's kind of a cute thing. You got 2 toaster slots in the top of the football where you can actually put Pop-Tarts in there. I don't know why you'd want to do that, but it actually is, like, kind of cute. And it's not a big bowl game. It's the Pop-Tart Bowl. But, you know, in the wait till you hear what the what is it? The famous Toaster Bowl thinks about that. Like, what the fuck? Like, that's our IP, dude. Well, now it's Pop-Tart's IP. But, it used to be the Blockbuster Bowl. Now it's the Pop-Tart Bowl at Camping World Stadium.
Unbelievable.
Okay. But they're dumping mayo on people. They're normalizing Cheez-Its falling out of the sky onto like Mike Norvell last year. Like, this is all normal to us. It's so normal that last night when they dumped that white substance on Lincoln Riley, I almost didn't think anything of it. And I was like, that's not mayonnaise. I don't know what it is. He's covered in gook, and it turns out it's eggnog, and it's the DirecTV bowl. Okay, so you've got eggnog, DirecTV bowl. I'd rather see him honestly get just pummeled by 1,000 remote controls than that eggnog scene. Can you imagine if they were just like, here it is, 35 pounds of remote controls on your head? It'd be better than eggnog. Because that scene was disgusting. Okay, and the trophy, by the way, if that trophy's like 15 acres, DirecTV is an obnoxious 7 acres of that trophy.
Yeah.
Like, it's like half the trophy. Okay, like, and I understand marketing, I understand product placement, I understand that right now there might be some people that want Dish. Okay, but this trophy's going to sit in a case for 20 years. You want product placement? Okay, like, bring a banner out during the trophy presentation. But, the trophy is going to be there for 20, 30 years in the hallway at USC. And in 2043, USC players are going to walk by and be like, what the fuck is DirecTV? Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like, it's not even that I'm watching NFL games while I'm camping on my phone. It's over. DirecTV. It's like already over. Not to mention, these kids in 2043 are going to have like TVs inside their retinas. So they're not even going to know what DirecTV is. Might as well be the typewriter bowl for these kids. And some trophies don't make any sense on top of this. We talked about Pop-Tart. It kind of makes sense. But the BW3 Citrus Bowl trophy, confusing on a couple levels. Number one, you're not putting wings in the trophy, you're putting citrus. They went with citrus, but the citrus is comprised of oranges, but it's not the Orange Bowl. You know what I'm saying? And on top of that,
citrus has always confused me, if I'm being honest.
It's really confusing. It's delicious, but it's confusing. And on top of that, there are some trophies you can get it right. You can have fun and get it right. I think the Idaho Potato Bowl has it figured out. You just put potatoes in the trophy. It's like a perfect situation to get the product placement in there. It doesn't feel corporate. It works, dude. The Hawaii Bowl, it's shaped like a fucking pineapple. Like, what could be better than that? What could be more fitting than the Hawaii Bowl being shaped like a pineapple?
Orange Bowl, to be fair, a bowl filled with oranges.
That's the minority, though. You know, it's like there's very few bowls that are that traditional anymore. And the last one I want to mention is this Hawaii Bowl. It's got a Hawaii Bowl trophy that's shaped like a pineapple. The MVP thing is like an oar. Because, they like to do that group kayaking, dudes out in the surf, group kayaking in Hawaii. It just makes sense. So my message would be, it's getting convoluted. Okay, like, I know these guys are getting paid now, and you're more of an economics guy than me. You guys are smarter than me, but like, wouldn't it be a situation where if you're already paying the players, like, and in the future you're going to be paying the players, there's not as much money to put towards marketing and product placement. If you're a school and you need the money that bad, just maybe don't put it on the trophy. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, let the kids enjoy the trophy. I don't need DirecTV on the trophy, not that big. So I'm just getting tired of this shit. Now, I love bowl games. Had fun watching the 9 turnovers in the Tech Tulane game. Had fun listening to Mike Elko, the bizarre nature of Mike Elko being in the booth talking about his players. This guy's going down on the field. He's like, oh, fuck, is he good? But I actually thought Mike Elko was really cool, hearing him talk. I've never heard him talk before. He was great. I love bowl games. Kansas, they're in Phoenix. They must be on a bender because every touchdown they scored, they had a personal foul. Like, they were drunk out there on the field, and they won going away. So, something different every day, a different opportunity to gamble. But come on, for fuck's sake, with the product placement. We know it's DirecTV. So the exercise I wanted to do was to rebrand some of these bowl trophies because I think some of them are terrible.
Yeah.
And I gave you some homework last night, so let's see what you came up with.
Okay, the Myrtle Beach Bowl. Instead of a trophy, all the members of the winning team, they get the HPV vaccine.
Dude, that's so funny because I had a hooker trophy for Myrtle Beach.
Isn't that pretty good?
Hooker trophy.
Yeah. Like the following summer, young lady is like, hey, do I need to go get tested?
Oh, he
Like,
played in the Myrtle Beach
no, I
Bowl.
won the Myrtle Beach Bowl. All good.
He's been immunized.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Valero Alamo Bowl. Every kid gets a VHS tape of the Valero Alamo Bowl so that they can always remember the Alamo Bowl.
That's good.
Huh?
Yeah, that's
Huh?
good.
List keeps going.
Uh-huh.
Wasabi Fenway Bowl, currently ongoing. Winning team, somebody runs out. No. Several dozen people run out with pins, and they literally draw pinstripes on the unis, and then that's a keepsake.
Yeah.
You know? That's hanging up in your home gym 20 years later.
Yeah.
Why do you have lines drawn all over your
Because the Wasabi Pinstripe Bowl rolled up on me after the game.
Because we won the Pinstripe Bowl.
Uh-huh.
Yankee
That's good.
Stadium. Wasabi might be the Fenway Bowl. No,
Yeah, I think it is. That's why I was a bit confused. That might not
Bad
work
Boy
out.
Mowers Pinstripe
Oh, I got a
Bowl.
good one for that.
Fenway Bowl. Ted Williams frozen appendages.
Yeah. Yeah. Just get a
Or
digit.
hand them out. Yeah,
You
get
get
a
a
digit.
digit.
Yeah.
He wakes up. He's like, "Where the fuck is my hand?" I'm like, no, this guy went off in the Fenway
We started
Bowl.
hosting football games at Fenway. Sorry, pal. Okay.
It's a bowl game.
Lockheed Martin Armed Forces Bowl. Nuclear weapons. for
Just a
everybody.
fucking yeah. I know.
Yeah.
I know. Right.
Got your own little.
Just say it out loud.
Yep. First Responder Bowl. Here's a fire extinguisher. Don't call us.
Yeah.
Well, I mean-
Like a back the blue bumper sticker. I played in the First Responder Bowl, back the blue. You never get pulled over.
Trans Perfect Music City Bowl. A subscription to xnxx.com
Okay. I don't even know what that website is.
for all your browsing needs.
I don't know what that website is. Okay, well, for the Rose Bowl, I want to treat this with a lot of respect. I feel like this should be a classy trophy. I think it should be like a California Golden Bear, like a nice brass Golden Bear with a rose in its mouth, like a bachelor situation, but really classy. You want to treat.
I
this
like
one.
it. No Stanford Cardinal's going to want to see like a California
Exactly.
Golden
That's
Bear.
the hard part.
But I like where your
it's
head
complicated. Okay, Myrtle Beach Bowl. I had here Hooker.
is. Yep.
Okay, so we were two trains on the same track. New Orleans Bowl. It's got to be a boot. Why
Yeah.
isn't that a boot? Okay,
Filled with gumbo.
We was something. Yeah, you got to drink the gumbo after the game, you know? Boca Raton Bowl. You know what that means in Spanish? You really don't know?
I don't think so.
You non-bilingual motherfucker?
Del Boca Vista.
No, it's the mouth of the rat.
The mouth of the rat.
Yeah,
Is that right?
so for a beautiful place to be named after the mouth of a rat, it must have been some sailor that saw it from a certain vantage point. But I'm going with a large rat with a football in his mouth.
Okay.
Okay? Lockheed Martin. If you've seen this trophy, it kind of looks like the most ominous football ever. It looks like a football that could be a nuclear weapon.
The nuclear football.
It looks like a nuclear football. It kind of looks like a football that's made out of a pistol. And I think we need to soften that a little bit. So I was thinking Apache helicopter. And I know what you're thinking, like the Apache helicopter is a terrifying deal. But most of the people watching bowl games never seen an Apache helicopter in action in real life. That's for the people over there, right? The people here, they're like, oh, it's a cool helicopter. You know, somebody's watching in Afghanistan like, I hate bowl games. But in America, it's like, yeah, that's a cool helicopter.
Remember when that helicopter landed at our high school to say you're playing?
To say I'm playing in the Army All-American Bowl. That was the most uncomfortable I've ever been in
That
my
was
athletic
cool
life.
as hell.
No, it wasn't. I'm going to tell you that story real quick. I was supposed to be, or I was an Army All-American, and a lot of times they'll land a helicopter at your high school field to tell you you're going to play in that bowl game. And me, as a really smart kid, I'm thinking about taxpayer dollars. I'm thinking about the spectacle. I'm uncomfortable with the spectacle. Everybody's just saying it's because of my dad, the whole thing. Like, that's what every accomplishment for me feels like. It's like, oh, fuck. And then the helicopter lands, and I'm just petrified, dude. I'm like,
Was it before a game?
it was like before a game, and there's like 120 people in the stands, and of course they've never seen an Apache helicopter, so they're not terrified. They're like, "Oh, cool, a helicopter." So the Las Vegas Bowl, I just went with a higher class hooker, like, like maybe throw some diamonds in there. And then the Quick Lane Bowl, you need a Dan Campbell statue. I think we're ready to put the Dan Campbell statue up outside Ford Field. He should be a Detroit icon. The Military Bowl, it's kind of tough because we just did Lockheed, but I went with a soldier here.
A soldier.
Just a singular soldier.
Yeah, like
You know?
a living one.
Nah, just a brass
Okay.
Homeboy's got his hand up on his head.
Yeah.
He's doing the salute thing. Fenway. This trophy just says racist shit. And then this is maybe my favorite one. The Bad Boy Mowers Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, it's not expensive to build these trophies, in all honesty. It's like pretty smart. When you see the money coming in and out of these games, it's like fucking trophy. It's like a drop in the bucket. So you build 2 of them. And right now that game's being played pretty much, so we'll be able to tell in a second. But you got a Cristobal and a Schiano trophy, and they're mowing the lawn. Okay, so like, you know, if you're after you fire Mario Cristobal in the next year, you're gonna have Mario Cristobal in your hallway mowing the fucking lawn.
I like
for
that a lot.
eons. And it's just like, you remember, like Greg Schiano, he wasn't just into chopping wood, he also would mow the lawn.
I like that a lot.
You know what I'm saying? So, and then lastly, Music City Bowl has got to be a fucking guitar.
Yeah.
Right? Real missed opportunity. These bowl game trophies are too vanilla and they're too corporate at the same time. It's like Super Bowl logos now. We used to have the cool ones, the Super Bowl 30.
Your guy, the Morgan State men's basketball coach, had a logo on his Q-zip last night.
Did he really?
Yeah. I wasn't close enough, but it appeared to be some sort of Sam.
Guy spends a lot of time on the court.
Yeah.
He's
a regular old Buzz Williams out there.
He is a Buzz Williams.
Before we get to Thursday Night Time Machine,
yeah.
I want to tell you guys about this movie.
Tell me about it.
The Iron Claw. It's
I heard it's good.
Freaking good. You would love it.
I tell you what, I think I'm out on the name.
Well,
Right away, I'm out.
Finishing move by these wrestlers where they like go grab your skull and crush it. But I don't want to say too much. about it.
Dark.
Great.
I heard it was dark. Okay, like I heard somebody went to it and they were like, "Oh, this is gonna be fun." Because who's in it? Like some fun guys?
Right.
Yeah.
Jeremy
Zac
Allen
Efron,
White, the
Jeremy
guy
Allen
from.
Yeah, you're like, these guys are
the Bear.
fun.
Yeah.
You know. Nah, I heard it wasn't fun in a good
First
way.
hour's fun, and then it becomes a little more tragic without getting into it.
Dark wrestling movies are batting 1,000, dude. Because you had the Mickey Rourke movie, The Wrestler.
Yeah.
I mean, that was incredible. If this
was
one's
better.
really,
in my opinion.
okay, I saw an anime movie over the weekend. I told the guys about this.
thought-
Boy and the Heron. Heron, not Heron. Heron, the bird. I told you to come to the movies. Didn't I invite you?
No, but
I didn't invite you.
No, but I was at
I said,
your
do you
house.
want to join a movie club? This is actually really funny.
Oh, I thought that meant like watching movies on our own time.
I said, do you want to join a movie club? That was my way of inviting you into the movie club pretty clearly. And you said no with a period. And I said, wrong text message. My bad. We don't want you there.
I always punctuate my texts, first of all.
Yeah.
And no, I didn't. I was at your house before you went to that movie. I thought you were going with your family when you said I'm going to an anime film.
No, I did not take my family to a 9:45 anime film
Got
on
it.
mushrooms.
Okay.
That was me and 3 dudes.
Okay.
And the theater was wide open.
Yep.
It was just us. Evidently, people in Charlottesville are not cultured. They don't like anime. And this is that guy's final film.
Miyazaki. Yep.
Exactly.
Wow.
All right. Cool. Thursday Night Time Machine. It's the last week.
Man,
Go
you're up. So I know you were about to say that Chris is up 10-9, and indeed that's correct.
I figured Zag for you this week.
I've done something strange.
Yeah, you picked
All
the
right,
Jets
that's
to
the
win.
only thing I'll say.
All
You
right.
picked the Jets to win.
Chris,
You bet a tie.
19-13 Browns. Macon, Jets, 21-17.
Okay,
Now
perfect.
listen.
No. I think they're going to cover.
Now listen,
I think they're going to cover.
the Rodgers storyline's gone.
Yeah.
The playoff storyline gone. Saleh coming back. Joe Douglas coming back.
I just won Thursday Night Time Machine.
hey, you're telling me Joe Flacco's going to cruise to 12-5?
No, okay, I don't know that he is. And the one thing that works in your favor, and I don't think enough people realize this looking at this game, how big a deal it is. Number one, Cooper's dinged.
Yep.
So, and number two, what does Joe Flacco look like when you've got 2 corners outside who can really play?
That's right.
You know, it's not like they have 3-4 weapons.
Winning's coming. Look
You know,
out.
I think Njoku props are good ones this week. But Joe and Amari against teams with corners, they're going to have to see this in the playoffs. So I'm really interested. Joe's not great against the coverages that the Jets run, 4-6-1. Cooper's questionable. Both kickers out. It's a slam underplay, I think. I think it's at 34.5. But yeah, with no kickers out, you're going to see people going for it on 4th down in some weird spots. Now, hopefully that doesn't mean short fields.
Yeah. For purposes of the graphics, since I'm on the Jets, can you make my score Jets 77, Browns 6?
Yes.
I would appreciate that.
That's great.
Okay.
And this is how this thing goes. You probably win.
And then we tie, we
and then
push, and we
tie,
go
then
into
we push.
overtime.
I don't know what overtime.
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
Okay, we'll deal with that later. So let's get Steve on, and then we got the previews, and stick around for Zach Sealer. Steve!
White Steve.
Gentlemen, happy holidays.
Happy holidays, Steve. It's great to see you.
We're good. We're out in Pasadena, ready for Rose Bowl. We got a college game day Saturday morning. I have a 2:30 a.m. wake-up call. I'll be on SportsCenter in the 7 a.m. Eastern hour. And then we got game day Monday for the big ones.
So now I know you don't drink the night before these things, but maybe you just go all the way through.
The problem Saturday now, because I want to watch all the games.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's just not. I have a plan. One of the best books I ever wrote.
Yeah.
Boys in the Boat is out, and I'm dying to go see it. I might go see it twice before Saturday.
What is that?
I'm so excited for it. The Boys in the Boat's about the Washington crew team back in the 20s, and a bunch of those guys end up becoming the crew team for the U.S. in the 36 Olympics. And it's an absolute must, just as a history lesson. The guys came from nothing. Being back at UW's campus, the boathouse is still there. You learn about the boats, the geography of it. Like the main meets of crew were in Poughkeepsie, New York. Like these dudes would take a train across the country with the boats, and that's where the big meets. Like it's astounding. It's and then the Olympics is its own animal. With the 36 Olympics, it's incredible, and I don't know how they're going to do it in 2 hours and 4 minutes. But I'm all in because, like I said, it's the best book I've ever read.
I gotta say, like at first I was like, I don't give a fuck about crew guys.
No,
once you gave me that spiel, I'm in, dude. Like they had to take the train across the country. What do they play in the Pac-12? What do they play Pac-12? What do they play Stanford women's volleyball?
I believe I think it was the 4-pack back then. I believe that.
That's crazy. That's just crazy,
yeah.
Man. All right, well, good. Also, supposedly Iron Claw, very good, is what I'm hearing.
I saw that, and I'm going to go see it, and I want to see Napoleon just for myself. I've seen plenty of people commenting on it, but Joaquin Phoenix, you get him, give me that role.
I heard it's really bad. I heard it's like the 2018 or 2023 Chiefs. It's like, yeah, Joaquin Phoenix is there, but the rest of it.
I didn't get a chance to listen to your wrap up about that, but there's so much wrong with them. That had to be a whole pod.
Yeah, it was. I couldn't. It feels like you're mad at the Chiefs. Now, part of that is because I had them on like a future, but like, you're just mad at these guys. You're frustrated for Patrick Mahomes, and I don't think, like I said this earlier in the week, like they got cute, and that's why they called plays like they're a good football team, and they're not. And so we'll see if they change this weekend. Like these fucking trick plays, man. Save that for a year where you have somebody outside. And that every down doesn't matter.
They remind me of the Bills early in the year. They don't do anything well.
Yeah. No, it's pretty interesting. It's unfortunate for Chiefs fans out there, but we're going to get to the NFL and our locks in a little bit. Again, I just want to say this before we get into locks, and I'm not going to say anything again. Stop tailing me on the locks. Only tail me when I tweet something before the game. Okay, I got to be like 3-18 since we moved this show to midweek, so maybe I'll be better today. But I've kind of fallen out of it. I'm 2 games under 500, and all I care about now, 5 games back from the field. It was a ball game until I went 0-3 last week. All I care about right now is just being above 500. Okay, that's all I give a fuck about. And so if you're listening to this, don't text me and say, "Oh, I looked at the social." But none of these matter. You want to know? Well, not to me anymore. You know what matters? Check my timeline right before the game. We're up 5 units the last 2 weeks, and publicly I'm embarrassed. But I just want to let you guys know that. So just do not tail me. You want to tail anybody? Tail these 2 guys.
We should put our records on those graphics.
Yeah, not now. Not now. That's unacceptable. You can't come late in the season when you're up.
I've been thinking it the whole year.
Put the records on the fucking graphics.
Yeah.
Like the old NCAA tournament when last 10 were a thing going into that for part of your criteria. Give me the last
10. Last 10. Okay, so we're going to get to that in a little bit.
If it's good.
Word to the wise, just don't do it. Like, look at these 2 guys and do whatever they say. So I wanted to start with this. College football, a lot of the bowl games so far, very exciting.
Rutgers first half.
Rutgers first half just hit.
Rutgers first half.
Money line. Almost got us. The butt cheek was out of bounds. Steve, do you have a favorite bowl game so far?
Oh, UNLV Kansas, I thought was fantastic.
Oh, it was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you followed it, the line moving 5.5 points because Bean might not play, and then you literally have degenerates at the stadium tweeting out videos of him warming up, then him going back in the locker room. No one knows what his pregame routine is. They just see other quarterbacks warming up while he went to put his pads on. He does his routine differently. There was a sense that the team had the flu. And then the line goes off, I think at 8, and he goes out and sets a record with 6 touchdowns or 7 maybe, and 450 plus yards. Like it had everything. I was impressed with UNLV. They just didn't have the guys. Kansas, big play making with the receivers. They caught every deep ball. It had over 400 yards in penalties.
And penalties. Like, yeah, it was insane.
Insane in a baseball stadium. It had everything I wanted. It was great.
So they played that game in a baseball stadium. Couldn't figure out where they were playing for a while.
2 games in a baseball stadium today.
Oh, it's good. Well, so yeah, the pinstripe and the Fenway and all that, all that shit there. But I mean, like, no, I mean, I thought it was crazy that these guys, every time they scored, were like, we have to get a personal foul. Like, we cannot score without getting a personal foul.
Extra point.
And another thing is, like you said, the quarterback thing, like sometimes it's nice to hear that somebody's going to the portal before the books get it or that sort of thing. But like that stuff doesn't seem to matter, as it's not a slam dunk anymore, dude. Like, I can recall countless games over the last 2 years where I thought I had to tell on somebody.
Nevada.
And the backup's good. Yeah, like the Nevada Western Michigan game was a sweat a couple years ago, famously. But like Riley Moss. In lieu of Caleb Williams, I had a tweet last night, and some people took it wrong, as they do on that godforsaken website. But I was like, I had a picture of Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers, and I said that, and this Mitch is Miller. Whatever it is, and is it Mitch Moss? Not my Miller Moss. Miller Moss is the guy's name, not Riley Moss. He's like a white slot receiver somewhere.
No, Mitch Moss is a great radio host in Vegas.
Miller Moss,
who has a quarterback name. I don't know why it sounds like a quarterback name, but it is a quarterback name. And I had this tweet that was like, this is Caleb Williams is Brett Favre, and this is Aaron Rodgers. I don't know why he's been sitting so long.
Riley Moss is the starting corner for the white team.
He's an Iowa guy. He's the Iowa guy. He's the Iowa
Denver
guy.
Broncos.
Yeah, so I thought that was incredible. And then, like on the other side of it, you got the Tulane quarterback, who the starter, he's in the portal, so he's not gonna play. And then the other guy's in the portal, but he's gonna play for his boys, and then he ends up on the John Deere. They cart him off the field, and there's nothing worse than that. Like, I'm gonna play one more for my guys, and then I'm gonna go on my way, and then you get carted off the field in the last game of the season. 9 fumbles in that game was fucking insane. So a lot of fun watching the bowl games. They're getting big time now, Steve. So before we talk about the playoffs, are there any big leans you have between now and Monday?
I'm just fascinated by what's going to happen with Ohio State. I mean, plenty of the talk has been, it started with Marvin Harrison Jr. Obviously, it went with McCord going in the portal, the quarterback. Devin Brown, who's going to play, he's going to wear number 33, so don't be surprised by it. He got beat out by McCord. But I think it's Missouri Super Bowl. I mean, I
like
read
Mizzou.
It's going to be a sellout crowd. I still, in this day and age of where I'm going to, because Chris, we've talked about this, like bowl games were my favorite weeks of college in ever. Like, you're with your guys. You don't have to worry about class. You're in some random town. You're going to find fun no matter what.
Oh, for sure.
And now what I would always say is if you're not going to play, still go.
Yeah.
Go to the game, like be with your guys. So it sounds like a lot of Ohio State guys are going to go. Now, are they going to follow through and play? I'm not sure. Like, we've seen, the Marshall running back Ali play the first half and then tap out after that. I know Malik Neighbors for LSU wants to get the record. Will he play after he surpasses the record in the Wisconsin game? So that I hate to say it, but like we wake up every morning, you text me, I text you. What do you think today? I'm like, I'm still waiting. You know, we literally have to go through pregame warmups to see and get a feel who's out there. So I'm fired up for the Ohio State game. I do believe Ryan Day's team will be motivated to play. And a sellout crowd at Jerry World is all I need to know. I'm fascinated to see what Liberty does in a spot where Everybody likes the look of it right now. Will we like the look of it after they play? 1 p.m. Eastern, Fiesta Bowl. That's a little weird. Iowa, give me all that game. I can't wait to see if Tennessee's going to start their true freshman quarterback against them. That's a daunting task. If your first start's going to be against Iowa, who feels like they drop 8 every time in coverage, and I'm guessing he didn't see that in high school football. And then we get into the big ones. I can't be more fired up for the semis. Every matchup, whether it's Michigan's defense against Jalen Milroe or it's Texas's defense defending Penix and those, like every matchup is so interesting and exciting to me, and it's what we should have had for the last 10 years. And I can't wait to be on the field for the Rose Bowl. It just blown away by it. I think I'm up to first day of Y2K. That was 2000. That was my last game. So 23 years. I can't believe it.
Well,
old man, feeling old.
You don't look old, man. You look great. You got that California sunshine creeping through the blinds there. So get yourself a tan there. But Iowa, speaking of people that don't have tans, Iowa, I heard Kirk Ferentz talking about, like they were pressing him on points a game and, the coordinator, and he was like, well, nobody ever talks about wins per game.
Yeah. Love that.
It's like, oh, snarky.
That's getting the job done.
Snarky. Analytics crowd loves that. But anyways, the playoff games, before we talk about the playoff games, I want to talk about real quick a playoff game. What's your guess on the Georgia-Florida State score? Because if this thing is close, I'm not going to be able to take it, from these Florida State people.
Yeah, I don't know how. It's up to 40 players that have played this year are not going to be on the field when you combine both teams. That's insane to me. And I'm just going to go off a whim and get maybe Florida State people even more mad. I would take Georgia's depth against Florida State's depth. No offense.
Well, that's half the problem, though. Yeah, I mean, deal with the
20.
SEC. They have like 20 of your best
It's up
guys.
to 20?
20 points.
19 is
What's
what
the
I'm
total?
saying.
44.5.
Yeah, so
Golly.
I don't
31-10.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm betting Georgia.
It could be 34. Yeah, I would say up to 21. I don't know.
Yeah.
And maybe if it does get that high and then you come back with Florida State first half, just praying Georgia's off sync a little bit in the first half and you got a laugher, but that you could have. We talk about unknown and not liking the unknown when we're talking about betting on these games. That one's the ultimate.
All right. So having said all that, where do you lean? Alabama, Michigan, Alabama catching 2 points, totals 44, nice low total.
Yeah.
Feels like a Big Ten game. Feels like the game I watched up in Happy Valley. So what do you say? I actually like Bama here.
I have something for you I think you're going to love.
What's that?
The teaser.
Ooh, tease Bama,
but
and Washington.
Washington.
That's going to be in the year 2024.
I know. One of my New Year's resolutions was to stop teasing, but maybe you just get one.
But if you put it in before 24, then it doesn't count.
There you go. That's what you have to do.
Exactly. I got to put it in now.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I get
Bama,
a Washington 11. Now that's not a true long teaser, but we're going through the 7 for sure. All right. So Washington 11 and Bama at 8. Ooh.
Okay.
That's going to be a fun Monday.
And if you want to have a little more fun, you back that up with, I'm not sure what pays more. Bama, probably, I don't know. Bama, Washington, moneyline parlay. Or you could bet the matchup that Washington's going to play Bama in the title game, just to have a little something.
Wow.
Because when you do look at the matchups, I've wondered for a while how Michigan's going to prepare for Jalen Milroe. He's an athlete they haven't seen at the quarterback position. When I've gone back and watched the tape, I think Talia Tagovailoa is the best quarterback that Michigan has played. Now, it's not Michigan's fault. That's the schedule. You play the teams on your schedule. But in that instance of that third down and knowing how much Tommy Rees has incorporated more quarterback runs and knowing what Michigan likes to do defensively, I think they're going to be up against it. I think Alabama's going to stretch them in ways they haven't been stretched. Now, I will say Michigan's played a bunch of guys up front. Their depth on the defensive line has been really, really well. They actually play more people than Alabama up front. So when I look at the matchup, I like what Michigan brings to the table there, but can they go out and do it? I don't think so. And the other thing, the biggest factor in the game is J.J. McCarthy. Last year in this spot, he didn't play well. He threw 2 pick sixes, and that turned the whole Fiesta Bowl around and was the reason TCU won that game. They couldn't overcome it. There's troubles in the red zone. He, I don't think, was healthy the last couple games, which tied into them running the ball every play in the second half when you were there in Happy Valley. He was a little bit better all against Ohio State, getting out of the pocket and make some throws, and then it didn't matter. So I look at him having to create. I think Harbaugh and Sherrone Moore do a really good job of making runs look like passes, passes look like runs, and with that, you get your tight ends out in the secondary, and that's not a lot of things. Alabama, when they've struggled, it's been because of communication, and we know how that communication gets tougher. When you got to deal with guys that are factored into the run game. So I think the stage is set for J.J. McCarthy. If they win, he's going to be the reason why. I just not sure if Michigan could do something that they haven't had to do all year, and that's throw the ball consistently.
All right, so money line parlay with Bama and Washington. You bet $5, you win almost 20. Okay, so that's enticing. Let's talk about the second half of this thing. Washington and Texas, real quick. Who do you think has the edge here?
I think Washington. I really do. I look at the gauntlet that they have ran. Going to play SC in a no-win situation, because that was Caleb's last stand. You get out of there 52-42. You come home, you play a rugged Utah team. You go to Corvallis in the pouring rain and still throw the ball to your NFL receiver, Rome Odunze. You take care of Washington State in your rivalry game, and then you beat Oregon as a double-digit underdog. They have been tested as much as anyone in the playoff. And now that they're fully healthy, I just love the idea of them as an underdog again. I love Steve Sarkisian. I love what Texas has done. I love what he's done at Texas. But that secondary, that's their weakness, and they're going to start. Now, they're not true freshmen anymore, but Muhammad at corner and then the safety they're both true freshmen. And Washington with 3 NFL receivers, I like that. I also like the idea of Washington and how they've been able to run the ball. They really took it to Oregon in the second half of that game, in the Pac-12 title game, and that's the difference. So we know how great Texas's defensive line is, but Washington's really, really deceptive and good of creating balance and being multifaceted on offense. And I like Penix in this spot over Ewers.
Okay,
I think Ewers is more talented, but give me Penix. All right. Good.
Just put that parlay in. And now it's time to put our locks in. And I said this earlier. Do not tell me. I'll warn you one more time, but I'm going to make the first pick this week.
I've been asked to read the standings.
Yeah, read the standings.
Steve is in first at 27, 20, and 1. I am second at 27 and 21. Chris, you're in third at 22, 24, and 2.
Yeah, the last couple of weeks have been rough for your boy. I think 1 and 5 the last couple of weeks. And that's the deficit here. Maybe I can make some magic happen, but do not go on this ride with me. Okay? The first game that I'm going to pick, and if you take a guess.
I don't know.
Baltimore.
Okay.
-3. What are we at? -3? That's what we're at. We're at Baltimore, laying 3 at home. I just feel like this is a really good matchup for them. As good as I felt about the Cowboys matchup, and I was wrong, although the coward in me bought to 3 and everybody won. This week, I'm not buying any points. We're just going to lay the points and see what happens.
Packers, Vikings under 46. Packers, Vikings.
Defense, you probably felt good about the Jaron Hall announcement.
I guess so, although I'm a big believer. Remember that Atlanta week?
Okay.
All right, Steve.
Dallas Cowboys.
Dallas Cowboys.
5.5.
Got it at 6.
I think it's a good play. I'm up again.
I think Detroit's had to have a good time this week, right?
Yeah, and I think on top of that, some of the matchups for Detroit in the passing game are pretty concerning.
Yeah.
It's Dallas at home. Okay, so then my next one, I guess I'm going to go Vikings and Packers over 46.
Here we go. All righty. I like it. I like it a lot. I like it so much. Seattle Seahawks to cover 3.5 points at home against Pittsburgh.
Ooh, I don't feel as good about buying that at 4. But why would you do it? I don't need pushes. I need wins. Steve?
Bengals +7.
Whoo! I'm making my last pick. There's some picks I like, but I've been told the best strategy is to fade my boy Macon.
Well, you could get closer to Steve, too.
It's just about, Steve.
You know?
I think Steve deserves this.
Okay.
Okay.
You want Kansas City -7?
No. Okay. I'm done doing that with Kansas City. I am done doing that with Kansas City. Fuck me running, huh? The Steelers, it's just too much that goes wrong if the Steelers don't cover because I got the win total. They need one win. I don't want to be sitting there double sad. So I'm not gonna fade you on this. I'm gonna go with the under Jags 38. Panthers and Jags. You know what? Yeah, that's what I'm gonna go with. Panthers Jags under 38.
Okay. All right. I am really tempted by Rams Giants over.
Yeah, I bet that in real life.
Tyrod is just so freaking
cagey,
above average in the Rams score.
Is he your favorite Virginia Tech quarterback of all time?
Nope, Sean Glennon.
Okay.
I am going to take.
I like McDonald's Marcus Vick.
I am going to take. Should I take that one?
Yeah.
No, you don't want me to take that one.
Which one?
Rams Giants over.
No, take it.
Take it.
I'm gonna root for it too. I don't care. Like the money's the important part here. Fans losing their money, listeners. I don't.
Give me the Philadelphia Eagles -10.5 points, despite Jonathan Gannon coming home and knowing Jalen Hurts.
Okay,
that's 31-13.
It's gonna suck when I'm tweeting "Yay" when Kyler Murray scores a touchdown to make it a 7-point game with 30 seconds to go.
All right, Steve. All right. Round out your 2-1 week here.
Under Saints Bucs
42.5.
All right, and if you people at home want to know, just for shits and giggles, what I've actually bet in real life, but I'm too afraid to bet. No, I've actually I bet some ones already. So I got the Colts covering, okay, and the word is Josh Jacobs still not a sure thing. I got the Colts covering. I have the over in Dallas at 53.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Why don't you just take those here?
Because honestly, this is more gamesmanship.
Okay.
It's I'm just trying to play the game.
We're driving to the Twitter feed. We got to drive people to the Twitter feed.
Yeah, we got to drive people to the feed. I like the Colts cover and I like the Cowboys over. I have the Giants and the Rams over. I have Baltimore for chickens. And then let me just make sure I've given you all my plays just in case they hit. I have Alabama and Washington in money line parlay. Okay. And then the last thing is I think I'm going to bet New Orleans.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to tell you too much in the previews. I thought you'd know, but like they could have won that game. And I feel like everybody's going to be on the Bucs. Maybe it's time to fade the Bucs. The last play I'm going to give out in these don't count is the under in Miami, Baltimore in Baltimore.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll take those Seahawks down to 3 points for my half point, please.
Oh, fuck. I got to do the half point thing.
I'll take the Bucs +7.5. If that's what you got.
I'll go
Bengals.
45.5. I'll go Packers. Well, no, because I think the Ravens could easily win by 3. So I might want to buy that to 3.5, shouldn't I? I'm like dyslexic with the
2.5.
2.5. Yeah.
Wait, 2.5.
Two and a half.
That's the move.
That's the move. All right, guys. Chris has got the Ravens, got Vikings, Packers over. Fading this cat here under in Thursday Jags. Macon's got the Packers, Vikings under 46. Seahawks catching 3 points, or Seahawks laying 3 points. Eagles -10.5. Steve's got the Cowboys covering. Bengals 7.5. Under Saints Bucs 42.5. Happy hunting, guys.
That could be 8-1.
Hey guys, I'm not going to lose another game this year.
All right,
and I'll see you guys next year.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about these previews, man. We were asking about how to tier these games, and kind of the way we ordered them was largely based on the importance when it comes to the playoffs. Now, for instance, like Bengals and Chiefs, both in it, but we slid them to the mid-tier. Spoiler alert. because I'm just really entertained by Buffalo and New England. Okay, like New England's out of it. We know that, even though they might win out because Bill's not gonna lose to the. Well, he's gonna lose this week, but he's gonna try to beat the Jets. So that's all draft order stuff. But we did put like Buffalo in the first tier. But largely, this is about where the most is on the line, mixed with the entertainment factor. So let's talk about the tiers. We got to tier these things. A suggestion was New Year's resolutions, which I think are hilarious because you're letting a calendar dictate. March, I got to wait 9 months to change.
I love it.
It's so stupid.
I love it. Hard reset every year. It's perfect.
You're not going to change.
It's brilliant.
You think David Goggins has New Year's resolutions? He has new hour resolutions. The guy's, let's change right now. So anyways, you know who David Goggins is?
Yeah, real fit guy.
If you had an hour with him, you think how would that go?
What are we doing?
I don't know. Whatever David Goggins wants to do with you.
I don't know. I don't think our energy levels are terribly compatible.
Can we get David Goggins and Macon together for an hour? We will fly Macon to your ranch, David.
Can you do that? Sort of Scared Straight.
Yeah, put Macon in the pond where like David Goggins, like every day he does this really hard thing that it's the thing that he's most terrified of, where he ties his hands together and his legs together and he just jumps in 10 feet of water and he's got to find his way out.
All right, but then he has to come participate in my camp. All right,
which is what
we just sit. We sit home
and bet tennis.
And we bet tennis.
David Goggins betting tennis
blindly.
Okay, so the tiers, the resolutions. Give me yours. The first tier is going to be the things that you absolutely have to do this year, and for 10 days you will try to do and then quit.
Don't tip. No tipping. So when I'm presented with the screen, when I get the $3.50 espresso, and it's like $1, $2, $3. Just be disciplined and principled about not tipping. Come on, dude. It's $3.50 for you to pull the espresso. I appreciate you saying hello and everything.
But like, put yourself in the position of people who are serving espressos. Like that tip goes to the house. It's a good thing for everybody. It's wealth redistribution, right?
Well, now you have me rethinking this entire resolution.
That's all I'm saying. Like sometimes even when the server doesn't do a great job, you still got to give money. Because I think it helps the people back in the kitchen. It helps everybody.
That's compelling as hell.
Yeah.
And you figure I get one a day. I can, 365 extra chickens for the good of the. All right, I'm going to resolve to tip $1 every espresso.
One less bowl game. Put it towards the tips.
Okay.
My top tier resolution is no teasers.
Okay.
I've tried to do it, and I've hit on a couple since I said I wasn't going to do it anymore, and it's tough. But it's a mixed bag. It's kind of like falling off the wagon. Like some nights you're going to have a good night. The other nights, I don't want to stop gambling. I'm California sober. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That'll be our layup line today is California sober, Billy Strings at the Hollywood Bowl. I saw that. I was there. I also saw Jamie Johnson sing Georgia. I've listened to that song 75 times since they put it out on Spotify. My kids are so tired of that. But I was there. I saw Jamie Johnson. There was a big cross in the hills. It was all lit up. He looked like I said, he looked like a hillbilly Buddha. And that was very special. Okay, tier 2.
Tier 2, we're doing them all right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, low-hanging fruit right there. I was going to stop gambling on tennis. I was going to stop gambling money on sports like I had been doing a really good job, but then
I sucked you back in, dude.
Yeah, you flooded my account with monies on, Leonard Fournette rushing for 7 yards a couple weeks back. And so now I have money to play with. It's house money,
I Venmo'd you for that.
You did.
Promptly.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, you're a regular old me.
Yeah.
When it comes to paying people back. So eliminating tennis.
I told the whole group chat, hey, Leonard Fournette, just load up on the props. He's going to play. He's going to get a lot of carries. And they kept giving him the fucking, the hook in the red zone.
Yeah.
Okay, my number 2 is go to bed earlier. This is maybe more necessary than teasers. You know what time I go to bed on average?
1 a.m.
1:30.
Yeah.
Because I work at night, and that's just not a good thing. Like
that's late.
I was reading last night that actually something as simple as artificial light before bed, we know it affects your REM sleep, but it does affect your mental health. So last night I turned all the lights off and I worked in the dark. Like fucking Edgar Allan Poe. I had a candle and I was going through all the previews.
Wow.
So that's like a half measure. I was up till 1 a.m., but at least I'm missing out on the artificial light.
You're up till 3:30 because you couldn't see shit?
I'm just falling all over the house.
I need to sincerely cut sugar. You may have heard I went to the hospital. I was on death's door with.
You think that was sugar?
Well, I got my lab work back, and the only thing that was high was my sugars. And I do eat dessert every single night.
Yeah, that's not a good thing. When you just kick the dessert, it's easy to kick the dessert. When you start eating dessert, you do it every night.
Follow up.
Yeah.
What do I eat between dinner and bedtime?
Chessmen.
Chessmen.
Low sugar.
The cookies?
Low sugar, a lot of butter. You could use some butter.
Okay.
They're delicious. I keep a bag of Chessmen with me at all times.
Oh.
Like I travel to inside the NFL with a bag of Chessmen.
Okay.
Pepperidge Farms. Try not to. I got a little case I put it in so they don't get crushed. They're still really good crushed, but it's better if they're not.
I didn't know this about you.
Yeah, Chessmen.
Known you all these years.
I'm a Chessmen guy. I got like a Chessmen briefcase.
Okay.
Yeah, I roll up to the game like Jameis Winston with a briefcase. You know what's in there. It's not like it's. I don't know what Jameis said was in there. It was
Nothing.
Like nothing. It's like that's what's keeping us from our goals. Well, in my briefcase is Chessmen. Okay, the third tier resolution for me, in other words, is not going to happen. Is smoke a little less weed.
Yeah. I resolved to read 2 books in 2023. Nailed it on the nose. Mm-hmm. I'll go to 3 in 2024.
I like to read more. Let me throw that in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, that's something I got to do.
Not any of this LeBron first page stuff. Like front to back, the book is completely read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it too.
Old school stuff.
Okay, so anyways, we got we went through Thursday night. We've got the top tier previews. We're going to talk to Zach Sealer later. And I think the most important game is Miami-Baltimore, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. 2 high-profile wins last week. Dolphins got the Cowboys. Ravens got the 49ers. Tua Tagovailoa, 2023 NFL ranks. You ready?
Yeah.
Pass yards first.
Yeah.
Completion percentage first. Passer rating second. Yards per attempt second. Wins tied for second. And he'll be going up against the league's MVP in Lamar Jackson.
So not to pour water on this, but this is a situation where, you talk about, and I think this is a defensive game. We're looking at the 2 offenses. We're saying, MVP, Tua, the whole thing. But it is about these defenses. I mean, that's how Miami won that game last week. Their offense was good in spots and really moved the ball well, but couldn't finish. The defense and the special teams. And like Harbaugh is a special teams guy. They always play tough defense up there. And, the one metric that they don't put on those, Tua MVP propaganda posters is, Tua under pressure. And, this isn't an argument. This is very cut and dry. His passer rating's in the bottom third of the league by a wide margin. He's in the bottom third of the league when he's under pressure. And I think last week, one of the things I was wondering was Dallas going to be able to get pressure? And they really didn't, because he got the ball out in 2.07 seconds. And that's a credit to him and that offense. And so I can't knock the guy for that, because it's not like they're dinking and dunking. They're able to get to spots quickly, make timing throws. He's throwing the ball before Tua's turning his head. Like, that's when they're on, that's what they do. But Purdy's a guesswork guy. And I don't mean that maliciously. Like, we talked about that last week when Stevens came on that corner blitz. He knew, and the Ravens knew, that they're going to go to Debo. Like, Purdy's a timing guy too. I think he's got a little bit more artistry, but he's a timing guy, and they were able to do what they did to him. So I think the big question here is, can Miami run the ball? If Miami can run the ball, they're not going to be one-dimensional. They're going to have to string long drives regardless. If they can run the ball, then what you do is you put Dallas in a situation. Dallas is the team that runs nickel like 73% of the time. Last year, they basically led the league, and that's put them in tough spots. So you saw when Buffalo picked their poison, it was more like pick your treat, right? You run at the little guy, or you throw at the linebacker. And we're going to talk about Dallas in a little bit this week. And when Dallas tries to stop the run at times, the issue that they have is Micah Parsons is as good an off-ball linebacker as they have, right? And so do you pull him off the line of scrimmage? How do you dictate to Dan Quinn how you're going to use Micah Parsons? I think the big guys inside is the big difference between Dallas and Baltimore. And I think you might have more luck running on the edge, but what you're not going to have luck with is a clean pocket. And you saw with Purdy, when Purdy can escape the pocket and make plays, that's one thing, but when the pocket's collapsing and it becomes a room that's shrinking, like in Star Wars, where they're all in that trash compactor, and like Tua's in there in the trash compactor, and he's Tyreek's like his Chewie, And he's like, what are we going to do? Well, I mean, in those situations, there's not a lot you can do. And so I think that's the thing. If you can make them one-dimensional and cave the pocket, I think this is going to be a lower scoring game than people think. The total's at 47. And I think for Miami's defense, if they can pass this test, you can talk about them as the best defense in the league, if not one of the best two. They're right there in the top 3 right now as we speak. Now, big injury issues. Waddle's out. Probably. I think he's got a high ankle. That's a big deal for a guy like him. Does Hamilton play for the Ravens? Look at what Hamilton did last week. Defensive tackle
everywhere.
For 1 play, inside linebacker for 2 plays, edge for 6, safety for 9, outside backer for 14, slot for 15. That's a big difference if you have him on the field, and if you don't, he's a force multiplier. He reminds me of Tyrann Mathieu.
Yep.
In the way that they affect games. When Honey Badger was at his best, it was everything. It was the TFLs. It was the heady plays in the run game. It was the ball-aware plays. It was the guy that can play everywhere. So he's really important. And so I hate to boil this all down to Miami's offense versus the Ravens' defense, but I think this is a lot of it. I think Baltimore is going to be able to move the ball at times. I don't love the matchups outside, but Lamar does really well against split safety looks, and I think there's reason to be excited if you're Baltimore's offense this week at home, the whole thing, how Miami plays at home, how they play on the road. They finally slayed the Dragon. They beat a good team. But again, they did it. It was a 22-21 ball game. This defense, if they're going to win a Super Bowl, is the side of the ball that's going to be really important for them. So that's the matchup this week, in the biggest game of the week. I think it's a little bit more about defense than people think. And for the guys up front, Ronnie Stanley and those guys, they have some good rushers, man. So don't be in these 3rd and long situations. And if Fangio's going to mix in any man, Lamar's got to beat you with his legs. You make a free runner miss and pick up the first down. I could see some of the situations like that. Armstead didn't practice. Mostert didn't practice. Hunt didn't practice. Tua limited. That's something to look at in Flowers and Zeitler as well.
Do you have any plays you remember where your hustle paid off and you were praised in film study and you just never forgot them? I'm thinking of the Kyle Hamilton play where his face was in the ground.
And then he gets up.
Played possum for 2 seconds, gets up and gets the pick.
I was uncomfortable with making plays like that sometimes. I mean, it's what you're asked to do, but getting praised for stuff like that, because literally all you have to do is get up off the ground, or for me, it's like running to the ball and picking up a fumble on the sideline, or finishing a rush and tackling Phillip Rivers, taking the ball off him in L.A., and that was a big play for us when we were with the Eagles. There's a lot of the sacks in my career is just continuing to work, and I think, for a guy like Kyle Hamilton getting up off the ground, that's a huge play in that game.
Mostert, 21 TDs. He's making a push for the most TDs by an undrafted player in a season, held by Priest Holmes.
Nice. I mean, the guy's put together a great career, and he's been in really good places. You talk about context, this guy's been in good places.
Yep. The Lions are at the Cowboys.
Big Monday night game. I mean, everybody's going to have played, so you're going to know what the playoff scenarios are.
Hangover.
And both these teams need it. And pretty interesting for Eagles fans, they're going to want the Cowboys to win this game. Honestly, because the Eagles, if they just keep winning, they win the division, right? And the Cowboys, you need them to beat Detroit, because you don't want to end up in a tiebreak with Detroit. You're going to have to go to Detroit if you play there. And for the Cowboys, the last thing they want to do is go down to Tampa. We've talked about this. So a lot on the line in this game. And I think both offenses have an advantage here, and it's going to be about who can use this advantage the most to their advantage.
There you go.
Both offenses, Dak against man, and I think the caveat here is Aaron Glenn could just decide not to play as much man, right? But Dak shreds man, so you have a choice there. You can get out of that if you need to. Now, the one thing the Cowboys don't have a choice in is stopping the run. And that's something I don't feel confident about them doing against this Lions team. So especially in the middle of the field, that's where they're going to struggle. The tight ends, Laporta, Gibbs, you talk about that matchup that you got with Damone Clark, the linebacker for Dallas, who's going to be on the field at times, and you pick your poison. You say, hey, we want to get him in matchups that help us. On the interior defensive line side of things for Dallas, I don't know why they didn't take a stab at Sebastian Joseph Day. Because the Niners beat them to it. So I'm going to be interested to see how do they stand up and play against this run game. Again, we talked about the nickel counts for them. And the Micah Parsons issue, like where do you use him to the best of your ability as a play caller? You've got to start fast if you're Detroit on the road. Like that's a huge deal for me. The way Dallas feasts on people is they get up. They did it against the Rams. They've done it against the Jets. They've done it against a ton of teams at home that I can remember. It's like over before it starts, and like there's a flurry of points, the turnovers. The Lions went to L.A., and that was a game I felt really good about for them, bet it heavy. It felt like I was on the right side for the whole first quarter, but they turned it over on downs in the red zone. They had a penalty, forced them to kick a field goal, and they ended up in a ball game. So you got to start fast. You know what this team is at home. And when Dallas is on offense, C.J. Gardner-Johnson coming back possibly this week is a big deal. I don't know where they are on that, but, Ferguson's been a big thing for Dallas. And for the Lions, I always said this, talking about that L.A. game again, where was the one big turnover? Because, like, in a game like that where it's going to be 40-40, the first team to take a ball away probably wins late in the game. And I thought as bad as the coverage was at times for the Lions, they did take the ball away. And part of that's Nick Mullins. And we said, I think a better quarterback beats them last week. Dak's a better quarterback. But those turnovers often come in bunches. So if you're going to be in a shootout, you got to take the ball away. And for Dallas, Tyron Smith has been healthier this year than he has in a couple years. I mean, he played 17 of 49 games from 20 to 22. Hopefully the bottom's not falling out on this guy. You know what I mean? Because on the other side of things, you've got Udoga, who played last week and really hurt Dallas with a couple huge MEs. And on the other side, you got Terrence Steele, who's given up like 50 pressures on the year. And you're going to play Aiden Hutchinson, who hasn't had huge numbers, but he's a really good rusher. So I think those are the keys. And for Detroit, like Decker didn't practice with a groin. That could be monumental for them. And
I have good news. This game is actually Saturday night.
It's Saturday night. Okay, that's why it's a special edition
Monday night football broadcast.
Monday night
because I thought it was this weekend, and my son's toddler splaining this thing to me. And I'm like, fuck out of here, man. Like, I'm ready for this game. It's Saturday night.
Monday night football on Saturday.
Is there any other Saturday games this week?
No.
Okay.
And then the rest of the slate is Sunday because Monday is for our college football playoff game.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. And when's the real playoff game? I can't wait to talk to Steve about Georgia and Florida State. That's the playoff game where, like, the takes are on the line, right? Because you just want to see Georgia just pummel these guys so everybody from Florida State would just shut up.
Well, and that's what'll happen.
That's what's going to happen.
That game is elusive.
I think it's Saturday.
That game is elusive. It's 4:00 on Saturday.
Can't wait.
The Capital One Orange Bowl.
Yep, bunch of oranges.
Okie doke. Lions, number 1 seed still in play because the Niners are going to have to beat the Commanders and then the Rams. If the Lions win out, they're the top seed.
No question.
If they don't, they have a pretty good shot at seeing those Rams and Matthew Stafford, which they'd probably like to see anybody else.
That's with a San Francisco loss.
Correct.
Yeah, they've got to lose to the Rams,
Correct.
which you never know. I mean, nobody's playing as – very few quarterbacks are playing as well as Matt Stafford right now. And I see a lot of top 5 lists, and I think those lists are reductive generally. Each quarterback should just be talked about individually. But if we're talking about quarterback rankings, like Matt Stafford, I don't see why he's not in the top 5 right now. As far as quarterbacks that are playing really well, like going in the playoffs, Lamar, Stafford, he hasn't had a game like Purdy.
Darnold.
Darnold. There's a few of them. So what's next?
Patriots are at the Bills. The line is 13. Josh Allen joined Cam Newton as the only quarterbacks in NFL history with 50 or more career rushing touchdowns. Allen was blitzed on half of his dropbacks against the Chargers. Against the blitz, 7-11, 74 yards and a pick. Against no blitz, 8 of 10, 163 and a touchdown.
And usually he's been pretty good against the blitz, but Bill's going to blitz him at like a 40% click no matter what. Like if you look at the history of their matchups. So you got to be ready for pressure. And I think more than anything, not to mention the fact the Bills are pulling for the Jets tonight, another interdivisional weird rooting interest, but the Bills offense the last couple weeks has said, hey, we're going to pound the ball. And I think there's nothing to glean there other than the fact that, like, they know what the objective is. Dallas was a matchup. Last week I said it, like, they've got to pound the ball. It didn't work out as well, but, like, we got to get out of here with a win and get out of here in as short a time as possible. I think some of that's just trying to build that machine for the playoffs. But I wonder at times if like with Josh Allen, Okay, I was a football player. I know what it feels like week to week. You're not on the injury report every week, but there are things that are nagging you every week. And Josh Allen is unique because he's almost like a position player. The way the hits he takes, the quarterback run game that they featured. Like sometimes I don't know if he's a little dinged and we're just like, oh, Josh is off. Like, and I'm not caping for the guy. He did not play well last week in a lot of spots. He missed some throws. But I kind of wonder sometimes if he is a little dinged from playing the Cowboys in a physical game where he had to tuck and run it sometimes. This is a game where you cannot work on the run game. You can't work on this new look. You have to try to win the game. And you lost these guys 29-25. And I put a lot of that on defense. As bad as Josh played in some spots in that game, like the thing we didn't come out of that game talking about is like the Bills defense, even down guys. You can't give up nearly 30 points, even with short fields and that sort of thing, to the Patriots. So I put pressure on that defense. They got to take away the middle of the field against Zappe. I think you'll have success if you do that. There's also a lot of good news for the Bills defense. They're getting Elam off IR. I don't know if he's going to play this week, but DaQuan Jones might play for the first time in a long time. People forgot about him. He's a hell of a piece for them. Hides day to day. So some good news there. But when it comes to offense, having talked about all that run game, I still think this is a week where there's no way around it. Josh has to be the good version of Josh. Josh has to win this game for the Buffalo Bills to go where they want to go. And where they want to go is possibly as high as a 2 seed if Cleveland loses out. There's not a high chance of that, but it would be good for the NFL if the Bills won this game because, number one, we want the Bills in the playoffs. If you don't like Josh Allen in the playoffs, you're probably a hater. And if you don't want to see Miami and Buffalo for the division and the home game in the playoffs, like that, I don't know what you want because that would be theater. And the way that that's going to happen is Josh has got to play well. I also am nervous about Cook getting the ball in big situations. That fumble last week was bad. He's had some spells this year where they can't trust him. Ty Johnson's dinged. You could see a Lenny Fournette, not to go back to the well on this thing, but a Lenny Fournette playoff cameo with this team. I mean, he's had some great runs with 3 different teams in the playoffs now, if you're going to include this one that might be coming up. And he's a guy you can trust. And so I'll be interested to see how much they use him.
The Super Bowl matchup just popped into my head pictures. Bills-Lions.
Oh.
How nice would that be?
Wonderful.
Something else just popped into my head pictures. Rutgers leads Miami 14-0 halfway through.
Let's go! We got that first half money line,
and we just navigated a pound high five situation.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, it was good.
Effortless.
Yep.
With
little effort.
2 8-7 clubs. The Steelers are at the Seahawks. Mason Rudolph became the first Steelers quarterback to pass for 250 or more yards and 2 or more touchdowns in a game since Big Ben in 2021.
So no guarantee the Steelers get in, even if they win out. They gotta hope for a couple things to happen, but it's very possible. And if the Ravens win this game this week, there is a chance that they'll be resting people in that game, Week 18. And so, when you look at it, especially the Ravens might want the fucking Steelers in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
They might say, hey, we'll take the Steelers getting in. We might just give you that game. I'm not saying that's really how it works in the NFL, but, playing fantasy football here as a podcaster, if you're in a scenario where it's the Steelers or, pick some other team, you might want the Steelers in, down a bunch of safeties, down a bunch of backers, the whole thing. I think it's amazing what the Steelers did last week. And I want to give Tomlin and Terrell Austin a lot of credit. You've got both safeties down last week, and I don't know what Minka's status is going to be this week, but you're down 2 safeties. You got to get Pat Peterson to play, safety. Linebacker has been an issue for them for weeks now. You've gotten guys like Miles Jack off the couch. You've gotten Jalen Smith off the couch. You might want to kick the tires on Dante Hightower, honestly. Landon Roberts is out, and they did a really nice job of fooling Browning last week in some spots where he thought he was getting man, he was getting zone. Or vice versa. And, the Vikings, as good as they've been defensively, did not fool Browning. Browning looked way better against the Vikings and that blitz-happy defense where everybody can be anybody and they can line up anywhere. They did not fool Browning, and I thought it was impressive that Pittsburgh fooled him. And they barely played any man last week. Geno's awesome against cover 2, so act accordingly. The big question is, how does the defense hold up against this group, because I think if it's a low-scoring game, you can win it. If it's a shootout, I don't feel good. Seattle is going to attack the middle of the field, and if you spend too many resources there, guys outside have to be great. JPJ, Joey Porter Jr., was really good last week against T. Higgins. And for T. Higgins in a spot where you're like, I want to prove that I can be the guy without Jamar Chase, and he did that late against Minnesota, that wasn't a situation that worked out for him. Those guys got to be good outside in the pass rush. As good as those guys are, Watt and Highsmith might be the best 1-2 punch in the league. They have to win, and these are two very good tackles. For the Steelers offense, I watched JT O'Sullivan's YouTube, and he's great. That quarterback school deal he's got is awesome, and I wanted to see what he had to say about Mason Rudolph. And what I took away was he threw with great timing, on some of these speed outs where you really got to have it. Like, he's hitting his back step, no hitch. He's delivering the football. The spacing is better. You talk about this offense and what they're doing, like with Warren in the flat and baiting guys down into the flat and then creating a void behind them. They're actually doing things with an intent. It feels like the spacing's better. And I thought, when you look at that first play of the game, or that first big chunk to George Pickens, if you get a post safety, and he highlighted this, and George Pickens catches the ball in the middle of the field, he's gonna make you miss that tackle. So when you get that opportunity, you got to hit this guy. You got to get him the ball. It can't just be 4 catches. Last week it was a lot of yards, but it wasn't a ton of catches. Feed him the ball. Najee Harris, Sayamalu, DNPs this week. It's Rudolph's show, man. If he can take care of the football, I think they can hang in there. Can you run the ball? That's the big question. Seattle can have the ball run on them. And when you get down there, you got to score. So you need long drives that are sustained without the mistakes, and I think that's why you feel good about Mason Rudolph, because he didn't really have a bunch of turnover-worthy plays last week. Last week it was the explosives. This week it's got to be down the field, right, and take care of the football, because if you can get in that red zone, you can beat this team.
From 8-7 to 7-8, Packers are at the Vikings. This is Sunday night on NBC. Jordan Love, 27 touchdowns, 11 picks this year. Whoever comes out of this one will have a chance to make the playoffs in the final week of the season.
I think the big news that came across the desk today was that they're going with Jaron Hall.
Jaron Hall, BYU.
And I thought coming in, the way we would guess would be, who plays best against cover 3 maybe, because that's what they do there. Dobbs, not even in the top 50. Mullins is 25. They go with Jaron Hall. Maybe it's that he feels like this is the safest bet. Mullins had some turnovers. He's had them over the last 2 games. If you don't turn the ball over, we're going to beat this team, is the way they might feel. And, maybe Jaron's that guy. Maybe Jaron's the guy that he thinks they have the least inclination on how they're going to play with him under center. So little gamesmanship by Kevin O'Connell. Also, is there any point to announcing this starter? You're not beholden to that decision on Sunday. You can always change it. It's not like an injury designation where you get into trouble. Who knows? This could be smoke and mirrors. And I think if I was a coach, I might fuck with these guys right up until the time the ball's kicked. And so the question for me is, can the Vikings run the ball? If they can, this is going to be a long day for the Packers defense. Now, they have an opportunity to step up in a spot on the road where they absolutely need it, down Jair Alexander, who they play without for long stretches of time this season. And those guys outside have to be good. The first time they played him, there was no Justin Jefferson. And they had Jair, and they got big chunks from Addison. They got Osborne. This is a scary deal for Packers fans, because I still think this offense is explosive no matter who's playing quarterback for them. And this is from Aaron Schatz. Shots. It's fitting because they're going to take them. The Packers, without the ripping game, weighted DVOA 32nd. So this is a bad defense. And when you look at some of the players on the field at times, I'm like, the sum of the parts should be better. Obviously, the coordinator's had a rough year. You got the Jair suspension. And it's just the type of thing that you wouldn't guess would happen to a team in a playoff hunt. And to make this move in the middle of a playoff hunt, how bad has it been behind the scenes, with some of the discipline things? It's not a good sign. It's a bit of a canary in the coal mine for this defense that already kind of stinks. And the Packers offense, man, Jordan Love's been really good against the blitz. This team looks so much differently offensively than when we watched them the first time they played. I mean, that was still in that time period where I thought this looked like a preseason offense, in that they were taking no chances, they weren't telling you anything. They were keeping things safe, and it just, like, even in games where you knew you had to score, they weren't really being aggressive. And now they're more aggressive, and Jordan Love's got a bunch of good weeks under his belt now. The game that kept them in the situation that they're in now, which is like you got to win, is the Giants game. And I thought he was a little off there. And I don't think it was the blitzes. Like, I don't know if it was the looks. I thought his technique was a little bit off, his fundamentals, and he missed some big throws, like down on the goal line with a chance to punch it in for 6. It's just an easy throw. Just make the throw. So I'll be curious in these got-to-have-it situations how he does. And if you're playing a team that's blitzing, and if you're playing man behind that blitz, which it's not always man with Brian Flores, is going to mix it up a lot, and a lot of it's going to be zone. But who do you go to in crunch time? And I want to say this. I'm proud of this. Dontavian Wicks has been the talk of NFL heads this fall. If you're talking about the Packers and the guys they have outside, they have some big names. They have, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, guys you want a lot out of. But Dontavian Wicks, the guy from Virginia, coached by my buddy Marcus Hagans, who's a great coach.
Happy birthday, Coach.
Happy birthday, Coach. This is a thing where this guy, I've looked at some of these charts on guys when it comes to separation against man coverage. He's right up there with some of the best guys in the league. And so you gotta have a big game from Wicksy. And it sounds funny to put it all on somebody like Dontavian Wicks, but he's got to have a big game.
If you're Green Bay, do you, and Jaron Hall, 25-year-old rookie, BYU, has about 20, 25 snaps on the season, do you go to the trouble of going to BYU tape? Or are you like, we're 32nd and wait to DVOA, we got to work?
I don't think you're digging in. And maybe you put like the last guy on the pecking order on some like Provo tape.
Okay.
But I think more than anything, you're looking at him in the spots that he's been
8
there.
for 10.
And also just trying to figure what Kevin O'Connell's going to do. You don't know what his move's going to be.
Yep. Middle tier. Kicking it off. What tier is this? What are we?
Yeah, it's the middle tier. This is the
go to bed earlier.
You go to bed earlier tier.
Go to bed earlier tier.
Raiders Colts. I'm really excited about this game. It could have been a top tier game. Both these teams are playing for their playoff lives. Like, the Colts could win the division. They got to hope that Jacksonville loses a game, which is possible, and they got to win out. They could win the AFC West. How fucking crazy is this? Now, these teams need help, but this is going to be a big atmosphere. And we had Antonio Pierce on Inside the NFL, and you talk to him for 5 minutes, you know why he's been able to turn this thing around. Treating these guys like men, peer-to-peer coaching, direct, bringing a guy like Jack Jones in, who made one of the biggest plays of their season last week, and, like, people think he's a shitbird. But, Antonio Pierce has been around him since he was a teenager. And also, like, hey, motherfucker, I've played on Super Bowl teams. I was one of the biggest dogs on one of the most famous defenses of all time, and I happen to know ball, and I've known you for a long time. Like, that's the power of having a former player coaching, the way you can connect with these guys. And this defense is number 1 in the league against the run since week 12. Jonathan Taylor coming back last week yielded disappointing results for the Colts offense. So this is actually a matchup they can hang in there. The Raiders play cover 3. Minshew's not great in those spots. And I just want to say this. When you look at the DPOY odds, Max Crosby's like 4th. But look at what this defense has been able to do with the lack of help around him. Now, TJ Watt could set the sack record. It's plausible. And he's a ways behind him. We're also not even putting Trey Hendrickson's odds up there high, even though he's 2nd in the league in sacks. But Max Crosby, even though the sack numbers are not that flashy, deserves to be in the conversation. What he's done has been unbelievable. And him being a centerpiece, like Antonio Pierce talked about, the first item of business is installing a culture. Well, you already have a culture guy there. And if he didn't have Max Crosby, you wonder if they'd be able to make this turn. For the Raiders offense, there's no good matchup for Devontae Adams for the Colts defense. And the pass rush for Indy might be the differentiator. They have come on. They're 2nd in the league in sacks. Who would have thought that? Who would have had that on the bingo card? They've gotten some really good, like Ebukam has like 10 sacks this year. Buckner's great. They get Stewart back. Pay's coming on at times. Like, they're better. And so I lean Colts. As bad as I want the Raiders story to go well, I also have a future on the Colts winning the division. So I lean Colts, and I think the D-line could be the difference.
Hatred, violence, and pain.
Now Moss and Pittman have been dinged, so that's another big deal. We'll see.
Bengals are at the Chiefs.
Yeah, they are.
Travis Kelce has not had a 100-yard receiving game since October the 22nd.
It's because people just take him away. It's like, what else do we have to worry about? And I thought last week the Chiefs hit rock bottom. I likened it to going down the river in my pumpkin. And you're getting hit and dinged under the pumpkin constantly. You see that, the penalties, the fumbles, the whole thing. But you don't know how close you are until the whole thing fills up with water, like it did for me when there's a hole in the thing. And last week was that hole in the pumpkin moment for these guys, man. It's just the water came in so fast at the end of that half, and the penalties kept going throughout the whole game. McKinnon, if he's back, that's a big deal for them. I mean, in the passing game, he's like their second best option. I know Rashee Rice gets a lot of credit, but not having him on the field is a big deal because of what it allows them to do. They're a great screen team. You've got to hit your screens. The Bengals have struggled in the run game. So I talked about morphing into this run team. This would be a pretty good week to try that out. You're going to have better results than you did last week. You're going to see the drop 8 stuff that famously in this couple-year chess match between Anarumo and Mahomes has popped up. And I think it's just Mahomes managing his frustration because you can feel it. He has never been this frustrated, and rightfully so. And I think that pick last week, and he did not play good in that game, was frustration. And I think sometimes, some of the, when I watch the All-22, I'm like, hey, it's there, Pat, just throw the ball. But it's not fair to him to say that because the guys that, and so often because guys can't get open, it's scramble drill. Guys that don't understand the scramble drill for him, even Rice and him are on different pages at times. He's hesitant to throw the ball to these guys in extended down situations. And so I talked about this week. I said, what's interesting about today's crop of quarterbacks, Macon, is we're trying to figure out who today's Brady's and Breezes and Mannings and Big Bens and that whole crop of Hall of Fame guys. Who's the next class? We've thought it was certain guys, and at times it's looked more like those guys are pretty good. I think the big difference in today's NFL is the context changes so much for these guys because of the patience with hiring coaches, the way guys are trying to climb the ladder, the lack of cultures that, subsequently, you see popping up in places, the lack thereof. And I think they have a great culture in Kansas City, but they have left him out to dry with this group. And I don't think that looking back, I said this earlier this week, I ever remember a Brady or a Manning year where the receivers were this bad. And I had a couple people in the mentions that said, hey, look at 2006. It's wild that you would say that. I don't think it's wild. 2006, they've got, at least Troy Brown knows what the fuck he's doing. He's 35 years old. He was a great player. He's not anymore. They've got a couple guys outside, but they're not playing the way these guys played. And you had Benjamin Watson. He's not Kelsey. But the bottom line is these guys, although they're not great, are even worse because they're hurting themselves. And you could say 2006, that team lost in the playoffs, and I think it probably is the same thing for Kansas City at some point. This is going to catch up to them. But in 2007, what the Patriots did, they went out and got Randy Moss and Wes Welker. So I guess the question is, who are the Randy Mosses and the Wes Welkers for this team next year? There's obviously no Randy Moss, but when you look at free agents, T. Higgins, Boyd, Michael Pittman, Evans is the guy I think they should go out and get. Do it. Just do it. Just do it. Calvin Ridley, that situation's not as simple as it seems because they're going to want to re-sign him. Mooney, Gabe Davis, there's a bunch of guys out there. So the question.
All of those guys are upgrades.
All those guys are upgrades. And if you don't make those upgrades, you're fucking crazy, dude. And for the Chiefs defense, you're back at home. You're playing a team that you feel like you're better than. Last week, you didn't give up a completion for 3 quarters. That's really good, dude. And so this defense, and when you talk about who the best defense in the league is, because I've been on good defenses on bad teams, and I've been on great defenses on good teams, right? We led the league in points allowed in New England. We weren't that good, that talented. We gave up 16 points a game. You know what helps? Complementary football. And until this team buys into that, your defense is just going to be out there doing all this for naught. And it's the reason that I put them up near the top of the league, even with an injury to, safety or, even with the injuries that they've had at linebacker, because they're dealing with so much more bullshit than the Ravens or than the Dolphins. Like, this team has to deal with it on a weekly basis on defense. I cannot wait to see if Chase plays the Snead-Chase matchup. That's a lot of fun. Next game.
Chiefs are favored by 7 points. The Titans are at the Texans. Texans get C.J. Stroud back. Tennessee running back Derrick Henry has passed for as many touchdowns as quarterback Ryan Tannehill. 2.
Not a system quarterback,
no.
that Derrick Henry. Texans, they are really banged up. When you look at the DNPs, like, did not practice. Will Anderson, obviously, still dealing with a high ankle. Those are a bitch. Amos, Grenard, Collins, Shaq Mason, Steven Nelson, Rankins, Tunsil. And it's no surprise to me because when you think about it, they just went through a murderer's row. And I don't mean like great teams necessarily. Cleveland's a pretty good team. Cleveland and Tennessee back-to-back weeks, that's going to hurt, dude. And, these injuries are no accident. Like, that's like going through the ringer. That's walking through the car wash without your car.
Jets, Titans, Browns, back to Titans.
Yeah, dude. So there's a lot of physicality they've had to go through without that quarterback, and I think he's special. So him coming back, it won't look as bad as the Jets game. They're going to have Collins. They're going to have Schultz. And I think the big thing is for this defense, you got both quarterbacks back. Levis is going to play, it sounds like. Texans give up a bunch of deep shots. We saw that last week, and a lot of them against play action. So if you're the Texans, you've been waiting to slay this Derrick Henry beast, right? And finally last week, he didn't run for a quarter mile on you 2 weeks ago. So if you're the Texans, you say, hey, how little can we commit to this run game and still stop the run, build off the confidence that we picked up there? That's the key to the game. If Derrick Henry goes off for 100, if Derrick Henry runs for 120, they're going to lose this game because that'll mean that the play action is an option. And that Derrick Henry's running the ball.
Houston favored by 5 points at the moment.
I should have grabbed it at 2.5. I didn't want to make that mistake that I made last week where I bet them a week ahead, right? And then it ends up being Case Keenum. Gave it out in the locks and everything. So I just sat there and stared at the number, and now it's 5. So fuck me running.
11-4 Niners are coming east to face the Commanders, 4-11.
First thing I want to talk about here, because there's not much to talk about, is the Deebo Samuel Cam Newton thing. That's hilarious to me. Are you caught up on this? Okay, so basically Cam Newton comes out and says 4 quarterbacks are system guys.
Got that.
Right? People are all mad at him, probably Deebo included. And I guess 3 weeks prior to today, and probably like a week or two prior to him going on that rant, which I thought was actually a pretty good rant, and it's proved itself out in a couple of those situations. He's going to be watching the Miami and Baltimore game this weekend for the clean sweep. But, Deebo got mad and came out and said on the Kay Adams show that, Cam Newton is a phony because he's reaching out to Deebo, trying to get him on his show 3 weeks ago. You're a fan, the whole thing. Well, I just tried to get Zach Sealer on the pod, and I've said things about Tua. I think it's possible to, to do this. But in today's NFL, people are very sensitive, and everybody takes everything personally. And Cam gets on the Twitter machine yesterday, and he's like, listen, I never texted Deebo Samuel, so show me the receipts, bro, since you keep receipts. And I'm thinking to myself, like, damn, he probably didn't. Is Deebo lying? The whole thing. You know what happened?
Nope.
One of Deebo Samuel's old frat brothers, I guess, had a number for him, and it got out to some other guys, and just some regular dudes were texting Deebo in, like, Windings in the Cam Newton font. And asking him if he wanted to come on the show, and that's the screenshot that got shared. So just a total shit show, and probably pretty telling of where we're going, not only in sports media but in every it's easy to fake a text message. Now we've got pictures that look real of people doing things. Mm-hmm. So it's just an example of how fucked we are. Because you don't even need to use the pictures for something like that. So I watched this game again, the Niners game, and I think the next time they play them, it'll be closer. They were able to run the ball. Like, if you can run the ball, you're supposed to have a chance. That's the outlier for them losing a game where they can run the ball. A lot of those picks, and I agree with people on Brock Purdy to a degree. I think he's pretty good. But a lot of those picks are he can avoid those next time. Like check for Kyle Hamilton in the end zone. A bunch of them are tips and deflections, and it's the left end hitting him as he throws. Like he's going to be able to get out of those situations. But the tough thing for the Niners is they want to fix these problems, and it doesn't mean anything to beat Washington, but they got to handle their business, so they can't be sleepy out there. And another thing that I think they saw in that game on Monday was the condensed formation blitzes, from the edge, where guys are like, okay, my coverage is 3 yards outside the tackle. Like I can line up here and I'll be there lickety split. And the edge pressures. So they got to find an answer for that. It might not be Washington, but somebody is going to be running that tape back. And Jacoby Brissett's going to play this week. I think what's interesting is Bieniemy, like 6 weeks ago, was the reason Kansas City sucks and the reason Sam Howell's good, and now they bench Sam Howell. And so if you're Washington, it doesn't complicate anything because I don't know if you're going to hire him or keep him as the OC. It seems like the new owner's really sharp, and the word that came out this week is that they want Caleb Williams, which to me, I think they'd probably be saying that anyways, but maybe it tells you that they know something about Chicago. I don't know. Indeed, right? So this game is not about the game. It's about everything else.
The most popular tweet that circulated about Jacoby starting depicted a really big, high, good-looking butt on Jacoby. Did you see that?
Thick set.
Yeah.
High-ass guy.
Yeah, high-ass, big bubble butt. It was just a good-looking photo.
He's presidential.
Do you play Trent Williams if you're San Francisco?
Probably not, because, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how close he is to being really in a bad way, but I would say, hey, guys, like, you guys got to pick it up front, and we're going to take away your best guy this week or something.
Yep.
You don't want to get Brock Purdy hurt, but you also know that you have Sam Darnold.
That's right.
And I said this earlier, like, won't it be interesting if Purdy's nerve thing or stinger thing becomes a thing, and Darnold gets some spots here where he actually looked very good the other night. Now, albeit it's 2-minute drill and that sort of thing and soft coverage, relatively speaking.
Did you see his face when Brock came out of the tent and like sat down next to Greasy?
Was he excited?
No, he was like,
"Oh, I gotta play."
No. After he had his touchdown drive, and then Brock comes out, sits down, like I'm good to go. And Darnold's looking at him like, you think you're going back in this game, player?
No,
And then Greasy was like, hey, Brock, I don't know. Go talk to Kyle. And Kyle was like, yeah, no, just sit down the rest of the
sit down, chill out a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I don't think there's a quarterback controversy
there. Yeah, right. Of course not. No.
But what I think there is an opportunity for Sam Darnold at some point to be this year's Baker Mayfield.
Yep.
You know?
Yep.
And just like, Baker got a chance from Sean, maybe Shanahan gifts Darnold an opportunity by just playing him in some of these spots.
Arizona Cardinals are coming east to play the Philadelphia Eagles. Line is 10.5. This is a Cardinal sandwich for the this is a giant sandwich or is it a Cardinal sandwich?
Giant sandwich.
What is the sandwich part? It's a giant sandwich.
Yeah, giant sandwich. Cardinals the meat.
The Cardinals the meat.
Yeah.
For the Philadelphia Eagles.
So basically, you usually there's no more cutlets in New York, so that's off the table. But the good news for Philly, I'll give you some good news. Jalen Hurts looks as healthy as he's looked all year. And I know there's not a lot to glean from beating the Giants, but they've been cagey, man. They've been tough, and to look like they looked offensively at times was really good. And Avonte Maddox is coming back at some point. That's a huge deal. So there's good things happening in Philly. The bad news for Philly is, I think, and we've seen this, like, I'm not cherry picking here, and I know this might not tell you everything you need to know, but I just went through a list of defensive coaches and, when they played their old quarterbacks that they've been in the building and gotten to know, like Dan Quinn against Matt Ryan. Now, albeit it was an older Matt Ryan, but 2 years in a row, really tough spots for Matt Ryan. Didn't look great, threw some picks. Todd Bowles and Jameis, of course, it's not going to look that pretty. Schwartz and Tannehill, that's
Todd Bowles.
Jim Schwartz was in Tennessee for a couple of years. And, you don't think you got to know Tannehill. Now, I'm not saying it would have been any different with the personnel on the field, but they got after Tannehill. Patrick Graham against the Giants. Now, I know Daniel Jones went down early, but they didn't have a shot offensively. Ryan Nielsen's looked good in his spots. I was going to say Sean Desai was the odd man out because the Seahawks beat him, but that was Matty P's first game.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, for the most part, these coordinators, if they know a quarterback, like, it's untold, like, what he knows about Jalen. So, and Nick Rallis, who's their DC, was their coach and linebacker. So they know some stuff. Now, we'll see how much they know. I think the mobile QB thing is a problem for the Eagles. You know, like Dallas and Buffalo gave them some problems at quarterback with mobile guys, and Trey McBride in the middle of the field is a concern for me. Here's one that, you know, on a macro level got me thinking. Vic Fangio was in the building with the Eagles. Like, he was their senior kind of like consultant guy. How does he leave that building? And I'll tell you how he left that building. It's because Austin Fort in Arizona had gotten to talking to John Gannon before they knew he was talking to John Gannon. And so they didn't have a chance to go find the replacement, although they maybe should have had that duck in a row. And for Howie, who always has a contingency plan, including Matt Patricia, for Sean Desai, like the fact that maybe one of the best coordinators, the hottest coordinators this year, again, Vic Fangio, was in your building, and then he ends up in Miami.
Yep. Hard to forecast.
Yeah, it is.
The Saints are at the Bucs. Bucs can win the division with one win in the final 2 weeks.
This should probably be higher, but we hate the NFC South.
Baker's 4-0 in December.
And I'll just say this, like, on paper, probably looks like, you know, Saints are the worst team and all that, but it is a division game late in the season. I know you got no Thomas. I know you got no Lattimore. Kind of robs us of that big rivalry with Lattimore and Evans, which is always fun to watch. But, you know, the NFC South is on the line for the Bucs, and I'm curious how they're going to play being on top. In that first game, I thought Carr struggled just hitting throws that he can make. You know, there were a couple big chunk throws in a game that was low scoring for the most part through a lot of it that could have kept them on track. One thing for this defense, for the Saints defense, they got killed by Baker Mayfield's legs. There were third downs throughout the game, and he rushed for like 31 yards, which is like his high on the season. I think he rushed for 30 another game, but he really hurt them. And, you know, when you look at the rushing numbers coming out of that game, you say, hey, they ran for 100 yards, but the backs didn't have a great day. Now we'll see if the Bucs' new look offense with a run game that's worth writing home about is going to be different. But the Saints defense, the passing defense has been very good lately. And in that first matchup, they almost had a pick six. They dropped it. So there's reason to believe if you're the Saints. Like, you can look back at that tape and say, there are things we can do better this week. I still think Shaheed and Olave can win for these guys. And the Carlton Davis loss is interesting for me for Tampa Bay. So both guys are down a corner, but who needs that corner more? We'll see.
Low tier. Chargers are at the Broncos. Can I take this one?
Take it.
All right, so Russ has an injury guarantee for 2025 baked into his contract worth $37 million. By benching him, Denver ensures it won't be on the hook for that sum if they should move on from Wilson during the offseason. So they still will be paying $124 million for 2 years of Russell Wilson, but they will at least save that amount of money on the 5-year, $242.5 million extension.
Yeah, basically, if he gets dinged, you know, over the last couple of weeks, they're going to owe him the 25 money, which is bad news bears. Because if he can't pass a physical, you know, the start of the league year, they're going to owe him that money.
Yep.
And so it's pretty simple. And there's some people that are like, feel bad for Russell Wilson. It's crazy the way we didn't hesitate to make fun of this guy or shit on him for 2 years. And then now, when the guy with, you know, trillions of dollars is going to lose out on some money because the team doesn't want to pay him that money if he gets hurt, I actually saw some people in Russ's corner. And I wonder if it's like a player empowerment thing or that sort of thing. Nah, where we are right now, this is a business. And, you know, this team's made a big mistake. Were you blaming them for not continuing to make that mistake? Like, there is a cap, okay? So if you're on the side of like Russell Wilson here, I don't know what side that is. You know, it's not like he's been tremendous for them. And he's getting older. And so I think the only thing to talk about this game is this is a very, very lightly bet game. This market is one that I think, you know, we don't talk about this enough. Like, if you want to get an edge, bet the games that people aren't betting.
Stick and Stidham.
Yeah, so we'll see. You'll see, because I'm not gonna see. There'll be other games I'm watching.
Denver lost 4 home games by a total of 16 points to the Raiders, Commanders, Jets, and Patriots.
Yeah,
And they're 7-8.
that's right.
Falcons are at the Bears. Falcons 7-8, Bears 6-9. 1:00 kick on CBS.
Here's my question. You know, Eberflus is taking a lot of shit this year. What coordinator do you trust more? Eberflus or Arthur Smith?
Matt Eberflus?
Me too. Me too right now. And so
right now,
that's Falcons got to win this thing, right? Like Bears don't have to win this thing. In fact, it'd be good for the Bears to lose this thing. Here's another thing I think is really interesting when you talk about we're coming off the Russell Wilson thing. If you're the Bears, why is Justin Fields playing? What more do you need to know about Justin Fields over the last 2 weeks of the season?
Right. If you need to see another 2 games, then he's probably not the guy for you.
If you need to see 2 more games, not the guy for you. If you want to tank your draft your capital for a trade,
he's not the guy for you right now.
He's not the guy for you right now. So
you don't want him to get hurt if he's the guy.
That's what I'm saying is if he gets dinged over the next couple of weeks in a way that like affects his draft status or not his tradability,
problem.
It's going to be a big problem in Chicago. And so like if I were the GM there. Or if I were the coach, if I was the GM, I'd be down in Matt Eberflus's office like, we don't need to play this guy.
The Panthers are at the Jaguars. Rinse and repeat. Trevor's hurt. Trevor will play. Jags tend to not play very well. He has more career interceptions than Mac Jones.
It's bad, man. It's bad. It's bad news Bears. And I talked about this on the show the other day. Like, the fact that they're this bad at this point in the season is totally unlike Doug Peterson. Last year they were 30 points a game the last month of the season. Even when Carson Wentz was throwing to people who are not in the league anymore, Travis Fulgham, who was like a folk hero for a second. Remember that? Boston Scott, that Carson Wentz.
Greg Ward.
Throwing the ball to nobody, right? Practice squad guys. With all due respect, they were scoring 28 points a game, okay? And the same thing when we were 4-6 coming off the Super Bowl and we had to go to Nick because Carson got hurt. We were scoring 28 points a game. So I don't understand what's going on here. I understand some of the schematic issues. Too much gun run. It really limits you. Not enough dynamic pre-snap stuff. Cam Robinson's back from IR. That's big in both phases. This is a must-win for the Jags, And Trevor Lawrence, as you said, limited participant, but he's going to play. And, the one thing for me is, can you run the ball? You'd like to think you can, but I'm never so sure with the Jaguars. And Bryce against an experienced secondary, that kind of tilts the Jaguars' way. And for anything you say about the Jaguars' defense, the secondary has seen some football. And guys that have seen some ball have taken the ball off of Bryce this year, whether it's Jesse Bates or, I can remember that second half of that game they're playing the Colts, and the Colts get 2 pick sixes. So this is a must-win for the Jags, and it's going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly.
Hey, none taken to Giants-Rams being the final game we talk about.
Sorry about that.
With 2 of the better quarterbacks in Matt Stafford and Tyrod Taylor. Rams were 3-6 at one point. They were some crazy record since their Super Bowl win. They were 8-18 since winning the Super Bowl, and now they've reeled off 5 of 6.
And I think it's a run game for them, right? Like when Kyron Williams was playing, and I said this the other day and tried this one on for size, I think this offense is more functional and better than the one in 2018 with Jared Goff that went to the Super Bowl.
It's the reason why Detroit fans don't want to see the Rams.
It's the reason why the Eagles fans don't want to see the Rams. There's not a team that would rather see the Rams than like the Packers or this defense. I'll say this, like Demarcus Robinson's come on for them offensively, and Stafford against the blitz. Not as great, but like they barely got to Hurts last week. I would start with running the ball 7 to 8 times because that's where you're going to make your money. Now for the Rams defense, Raheem Morris has done a really good job with this group. And an example, last week, you got to win that game at New Orleans. Like, all these games are must win. A wrinkle the Heat threw in that I thought was awesome was, like, if you don't get Kamara out in the route, like, this offense is different. Like, that's their centerpiece. And you're playing another offense this week where the running back's the centerpiece. And he kept Kamara in the backfield protecting, because Donald's going to get the slide, right? You know that. So then you put your free runner opposite him, and you know that the back's going to be on that side. And if you can make that back stay in to a click of 13% last week, as opposed to over 40% of the routes that he's going to be in, like, that's a big chess move that I think Raheem Morris deserves credit for, and everything he's done this year with this defense. Like, they have a lot of guys, and we're talking about them going to the playoffs and making noise.
Chessmen.
Chessmen.
The Rams are chessmen.
The Rams are chessmen.
That's the slate.